Welcome to Pass the Beat number 4 with David Osei. And we've also got Herbie drums. As usual, add your own flavor to it. Post your video online and tag Urban Science. Use the hashtag pass. Also, we've been putting a list of recommendations on the Google Drive for to use as well as some links to tutorials. And if you have any other suggestions, please do send us so we can share this with other people. We'll also start an artist interview series that's going to take place every single Thursday in feature science. Find them live on Facebook as well as on. Speaking of YouTube, we have been updating. You can find many old Cypher sessions for your enjoyment. So that's it. Send us your new versions of Pass the Beat number 4. Very interested in seeing what y'all come up with. Have a good one.
Livrer des produits dans nos assiettes, dans tous les liquides que l'on boit. Si le ciel tombe, que la mer monte, ça ne sera que justice. Y'a trop d'oreilles dans les oreilles que caprice.
Welcome to Pass the Beat number 4, this time with David Osei. And we've also got Herbie drums. As usual, add your own flavor to it. Post your video online and tag Urban Science. Use the hashtag Pass the Beat. Also, we've been putting a list of recommendations on the Google Drive of different software to use, as well as some links to tutorials and all this kind of thing. And if you have any other software suggestions, please do send us so we can share this with other people. We'll also start an artist interview series that's going to take your members of Urban Science live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, you can find many old Cypher sessions for your enjoyment. So that's it. Send us your new versions of Pass the Beat number 4. Very interested in seeing what y'all come up with.
Si le ciel tombe, que la mer monte, ça ne sera que justice. Y'a trop d'oreilles dans les hommes actions, frère, l'être humain n'est que caprice.
Welcome to Pass the Beat number 4, this time with David Osei. And we've also got Herbie drums. We'll add your own flavor to it. Post your video online, Urban Science. Use the hashtag Pass the Beat. Also, we've been putting a list of recommendations on the Google Drive of different software and links to tutorials and all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second edition of our The Process interviews, artist spotlight interviews. This week we have a very wonderful person who's having a beer right now. I can see him, but you can't see him yet. He is a pianist, a drummer, a bassist, sometimes a guitarist, sometimes a singer. Apparently does back vocals sometimes. A sound tech, a producer. He handles internal booking at Le Cypher and recently married. Oh, yes. His name is David Osei. He started on the piano at age 4, all the way through high school, cégep, and on to university studying music. It was clearly always a big interest in his life. Has performed with Dominique Fils-Aimé, Boogie Wonder Band, Freddie V and the Foundation, Militime, many other artists. Ladies and gentlemen, sans plus tarder, David Osei.
Oh man, what an intro. I wasn't expecting that one. Oh boy. I feel kind of pressure's on. Oh man.
No.
Let's hope that all the millions of people who are listening right now don't, think I'm full of crap or anything.
Well, I think that one of the reasons for doing this is just so that people get to know like other things. They might just see you at Cypher take a crazy key solo. Oh, he's that guy that just keys, and not know that, hey, you play with Boogie Wonder, you play with this, you play with that, So give a little bit more background.
That is appreciated, man. Very appreciated.
Good to see you. I realized I should have changed I always realize after the fact. Now you're like taller than me. Oh, having a nice beer. Hold on a second. Let's have it.
I am taller than you.
It's true. We should have had a drink to go.
For once that I'm taller than someone. Come on, man. Give me that one, please.
So, speaking of that, I have something to have you react to. And I figure it's a good way to kind of start things off. You can see my screen here. Let me just switch this over. And I'd like you to give me the story behind what we see here.
Okay.
So where was this?
Oh boy, I can't see your screen right now. It's just blank.
Oh no.
For some reason.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Really? It's blank?
Oh man. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Now I see it.
You see it? Okay.
Oh man, memories. Oh wow. This was a long time ago. So this was I believe this is 2007. I was doing this thing called the Camp de Blues, or Blues Camp in English. It was basically hosted by the Festival International de Jazz de Montréal, and they'd have these blues camp editions every year where you'd audition. You'd have these kids from 13 to 17 audition, and basically in order to spend a week at this camp where you'd have a couple of teachers and professors who kind of teach us how to play as a band, play the blues, a bit of history about that. And by the end of that whole camp, the last day we'd perform a show at one of the stages at the festival. So that was actually the first time I played at the Jazz Fest, believe it or not.
And
back when I was 14. With a mini fro and
a oversized, fro, some would say,
polo. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh no. I feel like you found some stuff that you shouldn't have found.
Oh, I did a deep dive. I found all kinds of old YouTube channels.
Why am I not surprised, Vincent? I am not surprised.
And so can you tell me a bit about some of the other people in the photo?
Well,
people may not recognize
actually
who's in the photo.
Quite a few people who are in this picture who are actually still doing music. Notably, the guy who's holding a trombone. A few people who, if you guys are involved with urban science and that whole scene, you might have seen him around. Modibo Keita, who's really he's really big around Montreal right now. He has his own event actually called The Shed, which is going quite nice, really nice. Who else in this picture? The kid with the long. Yeah, that's Adam Pasalacqua, if anyone knows him. Drummer, he's now on tour with, what's the name of the band he's on tour with right now? It's a big one. Now
it's not a bit. Nobody's a big one.
Yeah, maybe not now, but he's doing pretty well for himself as well.
Yeah. Is there anybody else? I can't actually remember who. I looked it up, but I can't remember now who was in. Oh wait, I can look right here. Oh shit, yeah. Actually, I don't know these other people. Oh, Vincent Pelletier.
I've lost touch with most of them, but quite a few of them have continued to do music actually.
Right. And then I don't have a picture of the second time, but who was there the second time that you did Camp Blues?
Second time, there are quite a lot of people. Actually, that was where I met my good friend Nadia Balde. Some of you might know her under the name Hawa, who I'm in a band with. We actually met through this camp during that edition.
Oh, nice.
Who else was there? I feel like every year there are quite a lot of people who've gone through this camp who have actually after the fact gone and you know, gone into music careers and are still around doing shows and you know, doing their thing in music, which is cool to see. Yeah.
When you were kind of coming up, was there was the CJAD big band still a thing, or did not exist?
The CJAD big band, I don't think I knew it. Okay. No.
There was a guy, Denny Christensen. Denny Christensen used to run it. It basically was like a big band that was all these high school kids. Like I think I can't say for sure, but somebody like Samblé is probably the right age for, like, I'm sure he did it, and like people like that. So it's like it was an additional outlet for kids, and they definitely did Jazz Fest like every year, kind of thing.
Nice.
But then the Cone Blues kind of, I don't know when it started, but like I
believe this picture was from the second edition, so it started in 2006.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been going on since every summer.
Nice. So are you gonna do Con Blues again? Do a little reunion tour?
Well, I can't, but honestly though, it was really a great experience, and you know, just the memories that were made, the friends that were made, the connections that were made. Yeah, I mean, if ever you know someone who's between 13 and 17 and who's interested in music, this is definitely a great experience.
Awesome. Because
just you know, the opportunities you get out of that are just crazy. And like I said, like a ton of musicians in Montreal have actually gone through that camp. Mm-hmm. I'm actually surprised every time that I, you know, see a face that I'm like, oh wait, you went to Con Blues too?
Yeah.
It's really crazy how
I've
cool. Done it.
Yeah. So you started in high school, and I didn't know that there was like a concentration in your high school for doing music, jazz, pop. Was there multiple kind of music concentrations, or was it an art school, or what? What's the story there?
No, it was a regular school. So I went to the school in it's in Longueuil. Mm-hmm. The school is called André Larandeau, and so basically it's just a regular school. But they have this small jazz pop concentration that I took part in during my high school years, and it was great, man. The coordinator, the teacher who kind of started this whole thing, Normand Gasselin, who actually just retired,
nice,
just this year.
Okay.
He started this whole program basically by himself, and what we do is that we have music classes every day. So in a cycle of 9 days, 8 out of those 9 days we'd have a music class, and it was in a big band format. So we'd all have our instruments or whatever. I was on drums actually for the first 3 years, and then I switched up to piano later on because a lot of the piano players who were in the program had left, and so I was the only one left, and I was like, oh, why not? Also, Sage Up was coming up, and I figured. I wanted to do the audition for music and whatnot, and I've been doing piano for longer than I'd been doing drums, so I figured I'd switch to piano. I feel like I'm digressing, but
well, that's
back to the program.
No, that's all good. Hey, it's not. We're just fucking talking. We can swear.
We are.
We can drink a beer on the screen. Like, who cares? I'm not drinking a beer, but whatever.
Where's your beer, Vince?
I don't know.
Where is your beer?
I got a coffee and a glass of water. That's what I'll have a drink after.
That is a good combination.
But anyway,
I actually haven't had a beer in like a long time.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I of course bought a case of Corona near the beginning of that stuff.
Why?
Why not? Why not?
You trying to mess with people? Corona.
There was actually a special, but I guess they were.
Oh well, go figure.
But yeah, exactly. And then I got some. There's this alcohol from or I don't know if it's from New Orleans, but it's definitely associated with New Orleans, called Pimm's.
Okay.
And I picked up some of that, and I was like, "Oh, this stuff is great." Yeah, and it was also just trying to get back in that zone. But I just wanted to say we can talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about. And if anybody has a question, you can always put it in the comments and ask David stuff. I do have some questions from callers or whatever, from people. People submitted some questions in advance. Yeah.
People actually decided to call?
Yeah. Well, submit questions in advance, and if you do have questions, please put them in the live stream. I don't see any yet. but whatever. I don't know. I'm sure they're out there. Feel free to ask your questions to the mastermind here. Anyway, so we were talking about all your instruments, and in fact, I believe. Let me just get this off of my phone real quick, because there was a question regarding your multi-instrumentalism, and I just want to get it correct. Sorry for the delay there. Okay, so the question was from, this says Remy Cormier, but I don't. Oh no, there it is. Sorry, it's from David Rishman. The question is from David Rishman, and it said, and the question was, how do you find / balance practice time for all of your instruments?
Oh well.
Well, do you practice? What are you practicing? And how do you balance that?
Oh boy. Okay, so in regards to how do I find time to practice every instrument, I don't. The reason is I don't. I mean, yeah, sure, I can play all these instruments, but in no way do I ever say, I'm definitely like, I'm great at drums, or I'm great at bass, or whatever. I learned these kind of when I was younger, and I feel like just having a good understanding of music in general, how different instruments work, kind of helped me a lot in playing. Mm-hmm. I did spend a lot of time just kind of transcribing stuff when I was younger. I remember when I was a kid, actually, I'd listen to the radio often and just kind of analyze, what's the drums doing? What's the bass doing?
Right.
So a lot of times I know what they're doing, but that doesn't mean that technically I can play it. But at least just having that understanding of like, this is the role of the bass, this is the kind of fills that a bass player will do, has definitely helped me a lot. Mm-hmm. In terms of practicing, I can't say I really practice other instruments that much. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, there's a bass right here and there's a guitar there, but that is honestly, I only started to have a bit more time now that we're all in lockdown to actually get down and touch those instruments for real. But generally, a lot of it is just kind of noodling around and using my ears and sticking to what I know in terms of the instrument, and that's it, really. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that helps.
I mean, I guess, well, the short answer is no, you don't practice the other instruments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I don't, yeah.
But I do think
I did practice drums for a long time, though. That I did do back when I was in high school.
Right.
Like, I had a drum kit at home, and I'd get in my 2 hours a day and whatnot. But besides that, it was just kind of, just little bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the course of my life, I guess.
The way I interpret that, and because I feel like I can relate to it, not the multi-instrumentalism so much. Well, I mean, I do play keys a little bit.
Well, you do play multiple instruments.
Yeah, but it's not
sax and keys. That's more than one.
Yeah, but whatever. I don't consider myself a real keys player. And
I don't consider myself a real bass player.
Well,
so
there you go. Yeah. What I feel getting older, is any practice I do now is not about getting better. It's about not getting worse too quickly.
That makes sense.
And it's like, I mean, you're getting older physically. There's a physical aspect to playing instruments, so it's, you got to maintain that. But I am definitely feeling like, man, I wish back in the day I practiced more, and like I definitely am feeling that whole kind of thing. But that's the truth of it, is that when you were young and you first started playing those instruments, and you were practicing a lot, and doing that every day, those skills that you build up stay with you more or less for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
It's
definitely
the riding a bike thing. It's not like if you don't ride a bike for 10 years, you'll never be able to ride a bike again. It's like, no, you can get back on top of that,
Yeah.
So I kind of feel it seems to be that you're confirming that, in that you're like, yeah, I don't practice drums and whatever, because you still have those skills from 10 years ago,
And I think another thing I'd like to add to that whole, just being surrounded by just a lot of really good musicians just around me. I feel like that also, in a sense, has helped me develop as a musician as well, right? Oh boy, what are you showing on the screen, man? What is that?
Hold on, they can't see it yet.
Oh, they can't see it. Okay,
but I'm gonna put it on. But just keep talking; it'll just be in the background. What was I saying? We're going.
Yeah, just being around different musicians all the time and seeing how they approach their instrument. it definitely inspires me as well, right? Like I get a lot of my cues just from my peers.
Absolutely.
On how they do things. Like I'm going to use Cypher as an example because that's our world, right? But just playing a set with Teacup, for example, and just having him and him and I play a set together, understanding what makes him do certain things and what makes him react certain ways, and same with a bass player like Emile or John Arsenault, for example. Just hearing the ideas that they come out with definitely it gets my wheel spinning as well, and I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. I'd like to be able to do what they do. And then à force de because when you play with these guys enough times, you end up kind of getting their licks and their things and whatnot and whatnot. So definitely helps me.
Do you find yourself transcribing, like, intentionally or not, people that you play with?
Definitely. in my head.
Right.
Like especially like I mentioned Emile, right? Because Emile and I we used to do this gig back in the day at House of Jazz that we did for like a ton of years together, like once a month. Myself, Emile, and Anthony Pajot actually, and by the end of that 3 years, we did I think 3-4 years together, and by the end of that, I knew exactly what kind of fill Anthony would do when, for what type of moment, and I knew that if I played a certain thing, he was going to do a certain thing. Same with Emile, So a lot of these things that they end up doing, at some point it kind of just it sticks and it gets in my head and whatnot, and before I know it, I end up trying to play like them as well,
Right. Yeah. Well, it definitely starts as like an intuitive thing, and that's why these bands who've been playing together for 20 years or whatever, they pull off the stuff that like, how the hell did it's because they've been playing together.
Oh yeah.
You know exactly. Whoa. Sorry about that. That's the next thing I want you to react to, but not yet. Sorry, that came out too quick. My bad. Technical issues.
Come on, Vince, get it together, man.
I know. My computer is just like grinding underneath all this live streaming. It's crazy how much it takes up. Anyway, but yeah, you brought up this gig at the House of Jazz that you used to do with Anthony and Emile, and I've heard about this because you guys, that's how you guys kind of got to know each other. No, that's right.
Yeah.
All this, and also at that time. So this was during your Cégep years, and you also had started a wedding band, and this was like your first time as a leader kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't per se start a wedding band.
Okay.
It was more, I had a friend of mine at the church I went who she was getting married.
Okay.
And so
I think this is how everyone starts a wedding band, right? It's like a friend of yours gets married, you're like, oh, okay, let's put a band together. That's how.
Yeah. Exactly. So she was getting married. She knew me from church, and she knew that I do this music thing. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, it'd be great if you could play at my wedding, get a band together, do the ceremony, reception, the whole shebang." And it was the first time for me kind of doing that thing where I had to set up, organize the whole, I guess, musical aspect, from the ceremony to the reception to getting the musicians together and writing charts and whatnot. What was your question again? I
just wanted to know about it. Was that first one? Was it like a pop wedding, or was it a jazz thing, or what was involved?
Oh, okay. So it was an everything thing actually. Okay. So nice. the way she really wanted the whole everything, right? So the ceremony, she had as most weddings go, you have a song for when the bride walks, a song for the signing of documents and whatnot, and maybe a song at the end. So, she had her picks of what she wanted to hear for those moments. And then, you'd have the reception where you'd have, the dinner section and then the party after. So that again was two different sets of songs.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So it was really like a whole day thing. I was out of high school. I think I was 18 or 19. So it was really the first time doing that. I had to figure out how to, get a band together. So I was at Vanier College, right? Yeah. Back then.
So just to be clear, so this wedding was like, let's say, like classical music for the, the ceremony and all that kind of thing, and then maybe was it like a jazz type thing for the dinner, or
sort of? Yeah, I forget.
I'm just curious, like what kind of different styles and all this,
So for the ceremony, what she wanted was, I think she had I forget what the song was. I think it was like either La Vie en Rose or one of those kind of standard,
right? Like almost pop jazz kind of,
American songbook kind of popular jazz standard, right? So that's what she wanted for that, for the ceremony, which was in a smaller format. So it would just be, piano, trumpet, and I had a drummer playing brushes and whatnot. So that was the ceremony. And then when you got to the reception, during the cocktail and supper portion, we just played easy listening standards. And as the night progressed, they would, get more intense and whatnot. And then after that whole supper, you'd have the actual party where, kind of anything went, top 40, disco, all of that stuff, basically.
Nice. So then
with a more full 9-piece, I think it was a 9-piece or a 10-piece band.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, different formations, different material, all this kind of thing. You prepared the charts for everybody. Of course, you got all the musicians together. Did you also have to deal with like sound systems, stuff like that, or did they hire a tech?
Oh yeah, I did, because once again, like, she just asked me to put this together, and she's not in this kind of business or whatnot, so that all kind of fell on me to figure out how to make that work again.
Right.
So I mentioned earlier on my high school, right, that I went to that has this whole jazz program.
Right.
I actually borrowed a lot of sound equipment from the school.
Borrowed, or you actually borrowed?
Oh, no, borrowed, yeah.
Or is it like every gig where there's a McGill music music stand?
No. Like actually, like I'm talking about like sound systems and whatnot, right? So cables,
you can't just
and mixer. Yeah. I could just borrow all that stuff.
Yeah.
We needed a van to lug it out of there, and I didn't have my license yet. I had my buddy drive me to school or whatnot,
right?
To pick it up. But so we had to set that all up. I hired a sound guy, a friend of mine from church, once again to run sound, because back then I understood how it worked. I just never really did it, and I wasn't about to start running sound.
No, while you're performing. Now you can do that.
Perform a wedding. Yeah, and I do it now, but that's just foolish.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a control freak or something. I don't know. Once I understand how it worked, oh man.
So you started doing. So those are some of the things. Sorry, I didn't know if I cut you off. Was there more about that friend's wedding you wanted to get into?
I don't know. It was what can I say about that? Well, it was a whole experience, because I mean, like, I had to, this was the first time that I had to deal with all of that, and then from borrowing the gear to writing charts to running a rehearsal, which I never did before. So I booked way too many rehearsals for what it was.
How many rehearsals did you have? Very costly back then, like
I think we ended up having maybe 4 or 5.
Oh wow!
But I think so. But I think we were all kind of new to it as well. We were all 18, 19, fresh in Sejep and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, it's not like you all had a repertoire of like, it wasn't a band that existed, Exactly.
And, because it was my first time, I was still trying out stuff.
Sure.
I really didn't know what I was doing. So, I showed up to rehearsal. I didn't really have all my charts ready, but I just said, okay, guys, let's show up and we'll figure out how we do it. And I think it was the second rehearsal, and some of you might know this guy, Alex Francoeur, who's a saxophone player. Nice. He plays with the liquor store. With the liquor store. Actually, so I got the liquor store brass as my brass section.
Nice.
How cool is that?
That is cool.
I had Remy and Alex on horns. Who else? Nadia, my friend Nadia, on vocals.
I actually I found a picture with you playing with Remy, but I think I took it off of my thing. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can deep dive onto David's Facebook and find a picture of him with this.
Well, don't tell people to do that. I'm gonna start deleting stuff. Come on, man.
The shirt with these huge lapels like coming out. It was kind of funny. Anyway,
it might be that event actually, because I think there might be a couple of pictures on Facebook of that. But who else was in that band?
Was it possible you were playing a Yamaha keyboard?
No, I played. It was kind of one of my first gigs on the Nord, actually.
Okay, I can't remember. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So you're saying all these guys that you knew doing the gig together. I that's where you're at last.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this guy, Joey Charette, who he performed with the Posters back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Nate Huss's group.
Yeah,
he was the singer.
Yeah. He was the singer.
Yeah, because we know each other from college, from Vanny College.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that he did Vanny music and all that.
Yeah, man. He was in vocals, and then one day he's like, I don't need school, and he just left, and now he's in LA doing what he's doing. Best.
Yeah,
man. He's been in the game for a minute now.
Yeah. So that's cool. So you did that, and then did you end up doing a couple more weddings like that, like having built up some of that stuff, or?
We did one other event, actually. I think it was a wedding anniversary, actually, that we did maybe a year later or something.
Okay. Right.
So I got to recycle a bunch of the songs.
Yeah. So you had it for a little bit.
Yeah, but it never really picked up.
Right.
I think we tried to do like an audio recording at Planet Studios one day to try to get it to pop off.
Right.
But
sell the band and whatever.
It never really happened. So.
Right. That's cool. It kind of reminds me. Sorry, go ahead.
I just said, the whole the wedding itself was really just a great learning experience for me, just to be able to understand how to do that, and really got my butt kicked a few times as well, just in terms of managing a band and knowing what and what not to do. I mean, booking way too many rehearsals without anything concrete planned. I was gonna say so Alex Francoeur, the reason I brought him up earlier was because he actually came up to me one day, and he pulled me aside and he's like, listen, man, like, I get it's hard or whatnot, but you're gonna have to find a way to make these rehearsals a bit more concrete. We can't just show up here every weekend and rehearse without understanding what we're rehearsing, Right. And this is before I had a car or had a license, so I didn't really understand a lot of what went into having to get all these people to drive around on a Saturday morning to rehearsal, figure out parking and all of that, and just the inconvenience it is for people, So. Yeah.
Figuring it out as a band leader. It kind of it reminds me of one of the first weddings that I did, which I don't want to get all into like what, because this is about you, but there is something to relate to here.
Well, let's hear about you, Vince.
I did this.
I want to hear about your first wedding gig.
It wasn't the first one. The first one was for a friend of mine, but this was referred to a friend of mine. There's a friend of mine, Elie Flynn, who's a guitar player, and he had some friends getting married, and they told him what they wanted, and he was like, "Oh my God, like I can't handle this." So he contacted his friend Ariel Harrod, who's a bass player, and then Ariel contacted me and said, like, let's work on this together. Basically, it was, if I recall, I definitely recall correctly. There's some stuff that I won't talk on air about this wedding because there was some serious disasters that happened there. Not our fault, but anyway, it was a Jewish bride and a French Canadian groom. And so they had like music for like the cocktails, which was like a jazz trio, and then they had all the Jewish horror stuff and the dancing on the chairs, all that stuff. And then they originally wanted a pop set at the end, but we managed to convince them, or they decided to go with this whole like retro type thing. So it was like a jazz, like a swinging jazz type of thing. But I had never organized anything of that magnitude before, so we had to find like a singer who could sing in what's the word I'm looking for? Jewish language.
Yiddish.
Thank you.
I believe.
Yiddish. Yeah. A singer who could sing in Yiddish and who knew some of this repertoire, and then a jazz singer as well. Like we had, a whole bunch, and we had two. Wait, did we have two singers for the jazz stuff? No, we had just one for. Anyways, this whole thing. But the reason why I was bringing this back is that we ended up getting. I can't remember his name now, but he was a great lead player back in the day. A really big guy, a French Canadian guy whose name I can't remember right now. Anyway, but. I was like, this is how much it pays, and like this is what it is, and these are the sets and whatever. And he's like, yeah, no problem, I'll do it, but I'm not rehearsing. Because he knew, right? We only had one rehearsal, but I think we had one rehearsal for the Jewish stuff and one for the jazz stuff. And he was like, I'm not rehearsing. And I was like, well, could you come to one of the rehearsals? He's like, yeah, sure, I'll come to one. But of course, he did the one rehearsal and he nailed it. Okay, like it was perfect, right? So that was his way of like, look, I don't need to be here. Like if you need it for you, that's your problem. He didn't say that. He was very nice about it. Yeah. But maybe that's what Alex was kind of saying to you in a polite way. But I think that's also one of those things.
And it made.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. It made total sense because I mean it was a very humbling experience.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, I did need these rehearsals for myself because as I was supposed to lead the band and I never did it before. So I needed to understand how it works and then get a feel for it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what that did teach me is that, you got to prepare for these things in advance. Like even rehearsals, you got to prepare your rehearsals in advance. You can't just show up and expect everyone to, just sit around and figure it out at rehearsal. Nah, you got to come to rehearsal prepared.
Yeah, I think it teaches us many things, like as a leader, and also as a sideman. Like as a sideman, you know that sometimes, you know, what the leader needs is a rehearsal for them and not actually for you, you know, and you have to just inspire confidence in that rehearsal or whatever, or they build up a relationship and know, oh, David will nail it the first time. It's fine, you know? So, you know, that kind of thing. We do actually have a question. It was a little while ago, but I figured and it's not really related to what we're talking about, but I figured we should go to it. So Dan Reed, do you know who Dan Reed is?
Yeah, I believe so.
So Dan Reed is also Raf Tademac put a little heart in the stream, so a little heart back to you. Anyway, so Dan asked the question, what's your process for coming up with repeatable melodies on the fly? Also, what about for some quick pickup chord changes? What elements do you try to include? What harmonic elements do you aim for to create an interesting progression? Could you maybe talk major resolution versus a minor resolution? Okay, there's a lot of questions in there. So why don't we start?
So let's go one by one, I guess.
Go with whatever you. I mean, the first question was, what's your process for coming up with repeatable melodies on the fly?
I'm assuming this is like a
cipher style.
This is in the context of like Le Cipher or urban science or
any kind of thing like that.
Yeah. That's a good question. How do I come up with memorable stuff? Honestly, if I'm going to be totally honest, I don't know. It's I think, you know, first you got to pick a key, then you got to pick a couple chords, and then memorable melodies. Here's the thing. So I'm teaching right now. I did this thing called Atelier Speech, which is kind of like a workshop for high school kids. It's a program that runs in high schools and helps them to get hooked on school and whatnot. And we do that through beat making and helping them create their own songs. And, you know, at the end of the year, we get to record it and they do a big show.
Nice. I didn't know anything about this.
Now
cool.
You know. Yeah. That's kind of a side job I started.
Yeah.
Really fun. The kids are sweet. A lot of them are hilarious. Some of their lyrics are fire and hilarious at the same time.
Nice.
But one of the things that we try to do when we're, you know, just because a lot of the beats that we're making, you know, I'm not the one who's making them. We try to get the students to make the beats, right?
Nice.
We want them to give their input so that, you know, at the end of it, they're proud of it and whatnot. And one thing that we like to do is to give limitations, right?
Okay.
So, for example, having a song, 3 chords, and say, okay, so your melody line or whatever riff you want to do, you can only use 3 notes. So choose 3 notes, and that's your melody, right? Now I might be, you know, going on. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I feel like just that approach sometimes is really, really, really good.
You know, when I was speaking,
a lot of times. Yeah,
I was just saying, when I was speaking with Freddie last week, one of the things we talked about, or that I kind of we riffed on a bit, was the idea of like total freedom not being a good thing necessarily, and like having limitations on it, you know. And I feel like that's what you're touching on as well. But sorry, keep going where you were.
Yeah, because sometimes, well, I think that's exactly it. Because if you look at a piano, right, technically you have 12 notes you can kind of play through, right? Wow, my piano sounds cheesy right now. It's part of a mix of something.
Oh else, yeah, so whatever.
It's very thin, man. But
we know
in the whole mix, it works.
Fucking go back to drums, man. Go back.
Go stop it. 12 notes. 12 notes times however many octaves you have. You know, that's a lot of possibilities. But sometimes just kind of limiting yourself to 3 notes, for example, and telling yourself, my melody is going to have 3 notes. You can't go wrong with 3 notes. There you go. Yeah. I have a pop song now. I just add a couple drums and a heavy 808 bass, and you got a hit song.
Yeah.
And that was very simple. That's just 3 notes.
Yeah.
You know? So a lot of times just kind of setting yourself setting these limitations is really helpful, I find.
Yeah, and you know, I think the important thing of what you just did there was rhythm, right? The rhythm was what made those 3 notes interesting, you know? Like I mean, you know, Dan's question is one of those that's a bit difficult in the sense of like, it's kind of like that question of like, where do you get your ideas from? Which is like the worst question in the universe, right? It's just a terrible, you know.
I guess, but I mean, there's
no
such thing really as a dumb question.
I didn't say it was a dumb question. I don't like that question of where do you get your ideas from? It's like,
Well,
I don't know.
You don't get to
the
decide
history
which
of
questions
humanity
work
is
then.
where I get my ideas from. You know?
Yeah. But
I mean, if it's a
no,
specific,
it's really not as deep as that for me. Yeah.
But what I was going to say about the rhythm thing is that for me, like often, like obviously there's initiating, you know, so there's coming up with something out of nowhere, and that's where you get your ideas from. But it's rhythmically making it have some relationship with what's already going on. So what I mean is like if the drummer is accenting on the snare, like certain rhythms, you know, maybe the first snare hit is the beginning of my melody or a high point of the melody or whatever, you know, because if the melody is in a totally different, has different accents as the actual drum pattern, well, then it doesn't make any sense, you know? So for me, it's like kind of relating it rhythmically to what else is going on in the track.
For sure.
So let's move on to his next question. So I'm not totally certain what he means by this, by the way, but he says, so also, what about for some quick pickup chord changes, what elements do you try to include? And then there's also what harmonic elements do you aim for to create an interesting progression? I'm not sure what the first question means. Dan, if you're still on, please expand.
But okay, I mean, I can try to. So just repeat what he said.
So
again.
the first part was, it says also, what about for some quick pickup chord changes? What elements do you try to include?
Good question. Honestly, if I hear chord progression I like when I'm walking down the street and I'm like, oh, this is cool, I'll write it down on my phone.
Right.
You know, put it on like a notepad or whatever, and then let's say I'm at a Cypher Jam and we gotta pick a song. I'll just go through my phone. Oh, this chord works. Mm-hmm. What chord progressions what's my go-to? I don't know. I mean, I feel like the whole 5/1 thing works a lot, so I usually just kind of work with that. Mm-hmm. But as a piano player, obviously, you know, you kind of learn how to dress them up differently so that, you know, you have, you know, you think a lot, especially as a piano player, you think a lot about when you play a chord, you're not just playing a chord. You know, your chord has a top note, which is a melody. Right? Yeah. So that's kind of one thing that I'm thinking of, right?
Absolutely. I guess.
So like playing, I
was just like going to say, I guess,
I don't know.
Go for it.
If I'm playing, let's say, G alternate to C minor, right? If I just play that's pretty simple. But if I think of what my top note is at the same time I can create some sort of melody with that, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so it's all those little things. Like, I think a lot of times, especially as you know, when I talk with a lot of musicians here and there and whatnot, a lot of things that come up with is we're always trying to find these cool chords and we're always thinking about chords, but melodies is really where it's at.
Absolutely. I agree 100 million %. You know? Yeah. I mean, if we think about, you know, many of the, you know, sort of, I mean, obviously there are some great jams that we've had where there's some very unconventional chord progressions or whatever, but sometimes it's just C minor to F minor or whatever the heck it is. But what ties it together is a good melody. And you know, I used to say this when I was running the community workshops. I'm like, do you have something like whatever we just did, like whatever jam we just did? Do you remember what it sounded like? It's like, oh yeah, I went like da ba da 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 or something like that. It's like you remember the melody, you don't remember, you know, what chords were underneath it. And it's I mean, you may also remember that, but like that's, or the bass line was this particular thing, because those are all melodies, whether they're on the bottom or on the top or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, there's a reason why when you listen to the radio and you listen to pop songs, there's a reason why there's so many chords that have the same progression. Like you can name a million songs that have the 1 5 6 4 progression, and what difference them most of the time is going to be melody and rhythm. Right?
I agree completely. So the next question that he asked was, what harmonic elements do you aim for to create an interesting progression? I feel like that's a separate question, or do you feel like you already answered that?
What kind of
what harmonic elements? What harmonic elements do you aim for to create an interesting progression?
I don't know if I can answer that really, to be honest, because a lot of it is just based on what I hear and what I listen to, and let's say if there's a artist that I really like, maybe I'll incorporate a lot of their playing into you know mine, for example.
Yeah,
you know, like if
I mean, my feeling on this is like, I think a lot of people get hung up on music theory and feel like, oh, I got to learn all this stuff in order to come up with these things. Well, no, I mean, I think it's good to learn music theory, and it's good to learn all
Yeah,
these.
it's great. Yeah.
Of course, but it's not going to then like, oh, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to use this music theory for coming up with my song. Like, that's not how it works. I mean, you can write like exercises to learn a technique and whatever, but at the end of the day, there's a friend of mine that said this. They said that, let me get this correct. They said music theory is about training your instincts. And I love that expression because that's it. You just, you just said, for example, G alt to C minor. Maybe you don't know what the altered chord sounds like, and so as you start learning that and learning the altered scale and, maybe learn about diminished scale and whole tone and other stuff that kind of make up that scale. And as you get into that, you start to get that sound in your head and then it just comes out because you hear it. So I think it's less about consciously. Well, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is really directed to you anyway. Less about consciously thinking about the harmonic elements and just having the training that like gets those sounds in your ear.
I feel like that's definitely the case for me. Like I definitely draw on exactly my whatever I've picked up over the years and my experiences and what I listen to and I kind of all channel that into whatever I play. Because yeah, I definitely don't consider myself a composer or yeah, I do write music every once in a while, but I'm definitely not the greatest or anywhere near.
Oh, come on, man, you're the greatest. You're the greatest.
Oh, get out of here. It's definitely not my forte, but I can say that when I do play and when the ideas that I do get are just based out of experiences and based out of things I listen to and think if I like a certain player, I might end up incorporating some of his things in my music as well. So it's really just, I guess a lot of it comes down to just listening and analyzing what you hear.
Yeah, I think.
Well,
maybe that's a good way to think of it. Like, you like something, well, analyze it, figure out what it actually is, and as you do that more and more, you get more tools.
Exactly, and I mean the word analyze doesn't have to be this big thing where you sit down, you have your pen and paper, and you're writing down every single thing. It could be as simple as, well, I like how in so and so's way of playing, how their chord progressions, for example, they have a certain way of introducing certain chords or bringing chords together, for example. That It could be as simple as that, rather than, well, I know he plays these notes and whatever,
Well, actually, on
For
that,
me, anyways, that's how I feel it a lot.
On that note, and kind of tying into Dan's last question. So Dan's last question was, could maybe talk major resolution versus a minor resolution. And what I was going to say is that from what you just told me, it reminds me a little bit about, so Robert Glasper is one of your influences. And I feel like he uses a lot of the same kind of techniques, like in the sense of, well, I don't know if he thinks about it this way, but I see a lot of his progressions as coming as like mixed mode or whatever, what do you want to call it? Like, it starts in major and then it uses some minor harmony and then goes back to major, and like that's how I see it. So do you want to talk about Glasper a little bit and how he influenced your playing and all this stuff, and maybe integrate the major versus minor resolution? I don't know if you agree with my synopsis of like the way his ideas are built, but
I can try, but again, like I'm not a big technical head. I gotta be honest, like I'm not when I think of music, I don't try to think in terms of okay, this chord going to this chord, resolving to this and whatnot. It's a lot of it is and maybe this might sound cheesy or whatever, but a lot of it is just feel, and whatever feels good. If I like how this chord sounds, that's what I'm going to play. Now to go back to the Glasper thing. So Glasper, what can I say about Glasper? I mean, yeah, I can definitely say, especially when it comes to playing, more hip hop or R&B and soul. I definitely have gotten a lot of influences by him, and he does definitely do this whole major minor. Let's see if I can hook this up.
Yeah.
And a lot of these rolled chords, but then again, you see like how he always adds his little rolls. That he always does.
It's almost.
There's a lot of that too.
It's
which
also
I feel like
it's many in what I think what you're getting at is it's not just about the chords, it's the way he's playing it. Like, it's the grace notes, it's the rolled chords, it's all that. Yeah.
It's all of that because I can play that same progression.
Yeah. sounds
and
lame
it's
as hell.
boring, you know. But you
Yeah.
add your little flair to it. And whatnot,
Not to mention, there's a
it's
melody. There's a melody in there, right? When you do
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and it's just figuring out like what melodies work for you and within the chords.
Mhm.
That's definitely what I've been. That's what I've been working on a lot actually these days.
Mhm.
Straight up, like in terms of figuring out chords and whatnot, is how to make those chords sound interesting. Well, you got to figure out how to get melodies into those chords.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of my answers are getting back to the whole. Well, it's not about the chords, it's not about the notes, but it's about figuring out melodies and rhythms, and I feel like that's definitely the key.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. You asked me before this interview, like, what should I talk about? I don't know what I should talk about. I'm like, whatever, it's going to come out naturally. Like, what you think are like for you, you're realizing as you're talking about this, like, oh, melody is the thing. That's where it's at.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I agree completely. Like people, I mean. Obviously, yes, it is important to get your theory together. It is important to get your technique together.
I feel like yeah.
But it's not.
I feel like I've definitely been blessed with having the chance to I did the whole schooling in music and whatnot, and I got a bit of theory and whatnot, and that's definitely helped as well. But I feel like there's always a balance between what's theoretically what makes sense, and then what do you actually feel? What do you actually want to play? What makes sense for you to play as an artist or as a musician,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, we talked a little bit about Glasper and all this. So I want to get you to react to something. I'm just going to set up the screen here. And I think you should be able to see. Well, that's still the old picture, but
yeah.
I want to get you to react to this.
Get
You've
that.
probably seen this, but I don't care. I want you to see this anyway. And you can react live.
Oh yeah, this is the was it Herbie's or Glasper's birthday? One of their birthdays.
Yes, that's right. It's Glasper's birthday.
Oh,
With Bruner Brothers, Thundercat, and his brother on the drums.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen this video.
Woo! Were you into the Bruner Brothers at all?
Yeah, we talked about that.
We did talk about this. Hey, yeah.
Yeah, like their mom posted a bunch of their videos or something
my God.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like 15 years ago or something before they all blew up.
Well,
Stuff
before
was
Thundercat.
great.
I mean, before he became Thundercat,
Exactly. Yeah, no, this was back in my drummer days actually. I used to follow Ronald
Oh, here
Bruner
we
a
go.
lot.
Oh, here's the moment.
And then they bring Herbie up, eh?
Does anybody know this song? Oh my God. Although I admit, some of my stage patter is definitely inspired by Glasper's stage pattern.
Hey, what? Sorry.
Some of my stage patter is definitely inspired by Glasper's stage pattern.
Oh boy.
He says
You guys are
shit.
both huge geeks then.
Yes, exactly.
He's a huge geek, man. What do you listen to his banter? This is hilarious.
All right, I'm not going to play the whole video because it's quite lengthy, but I do ask people to go check it out. I'm just going to switch back to our interview format. There we go. I just turned it down a little bit. Okay, so give me a reaction. Oh, actually, Dan says thanks. I can think on that melody chord, etc. Also, Mabika Key, shout out to you. And if you have any questions for David, please post them in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Oh, fuck that shit. Anyway, I hate all those YouTubers that go on with that. But give me a reaction to that because I also know that Herbie's one of your big influences. So
Herbie is definitely one of my influences because I mean, like just look at that. He's like 79 years old and he's still hanging with all these younger generation dudes. And I feel like that's been his whole life, Like he started out doing the post-bop stuff and then ended up doing, fusion and a bit of disco and a bit of funk and just, love the guy.
He also he started off as the young guy in Miles's band, right? Like he saw
like
that whole
20
mentorship thing.
Yeah, when you started, yeah. He used to got yelled at by Miles and stuff, and then now look at him now. Yeah, no, Herbie is definitely one of probably my biggest influence.
Right.
Just in his whole, as an artist, just who he is. The whole understanding the piano side. The stuff he plays is crazy because I mean, like you transcribe whatever he just did there, and it's just a bunch of patterns and a bunch of whatever, but it sounds cool,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah. What can I say about this video?
I'll mention that Remy, Nadia, and Max all say hi. Remy said, I missed this, but Remy said, "Oh shit, I remember that gig." So that was, I guess, that very first wedding gig back in the day.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I think a lot of us, like, it was our first. Well, not maybe not our,
one of those early ones. Yeah.
One of those early, exactly. That's how Remy and I met. I actually met him because I went to Cégep Saint Laurent, and I was I didn't go to the school, but I had a friend who went there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you got to meet this kid, Rémi Cormier, plays trumpet," and he's like, "All the teachers love him, blah blah blah. He's great. You should meet him. You should get him to join the band." So I went to the school. I introduced myself. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Dave. I got this gig. It pays $200. You down?" "Oh yeah, I'm totally down." Because obviously at that age, we don't get gigs that are $200.
That's like crazy. That, so. Yeah. And also,
so I guess it's easy to make friends when you show up and you introduce yourself and offer them money to play with you.
Well, yes and no, but I think it's it's right in the right moment too. But like for me personally, like I do realize that in the context of urban science, I'm like the boss man, and I'm paying everybody and whatever. But well, whatever. I think it's important to, if you're going to work with, I mean, at that point you guys were kids and whatever, but if you want to work with pros, you got to treat people professionally, and that includes pay, so it's not just about, I'm going to pay you this, but it's like, I'm not asking you to do a gig for $20 and a beer or whatever, I mean, that's cool too with another context of maybe players or the project or whatever, it just has to be above board. Although I do want to kind of touch, although we can go back to the Herbie Glasper thing at any point, we can jump around. There's no topics.
Sure, yeah.
But there's something that we talked about separately a while ago, which was, you've mentioned a couple of times to me that like used to not have your shit together at all, and that if I had met you like in the early days, I would have had like a really bad impression or something like that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Very possible.
Was that before this like wedding, or was that at the time you were still like, I don't know my shit together, whatever?
I think it was. It's a good question. I forget when this was, but I definitely got my stuff together after the wedding, I think.
Okay. So maybe that was one of the reasons why you got it together, the experience with the wedding, or not really?
No, it was another unrelated thing actually. So I was in this
unrelated thing.
Pardon?
I said, tell us about this thing. I know that there's a story.
All right. Cards are on the table. So, have you ever heard of the Montreal All City Big Band?
Yes.
Is that ring a bell?
I'm confused.
It was run by what's his name? Christian Morissette. Yeah, that's who ran it. Christian Morissette. So he ran this big band. You know what? That was probably like inspired by CJD, the one I was talking about with Denny Christensen, the CJD. Anyway, whatever. It's the history of Montreal and whatever. But okay, sorry. So that's, yes, I know what that is. Yeah. So it was this band. So Cégep University kids and whatnot. We'd all audition, get in the band, played big band charts. And yeah, I definitely had an organizational problem. So like, I'd forget charts and was not, I just didn't have it together. So we had this one show where it was at Boston Denis, and I will always remember this show because I show up. I didn't have a keyboard back then, so I borrowed a friend's keyboard. I show up to the gig. I think I forgot the power cable at home, right? So yeah, it sucks. I can't play keys, but there was another keyboard player also who was in the band before us, and we were supposed to use the keyboard that I brought, and he also couldn't do the gig because I didn't bring the power cord. Exactly. And it wasn't the first time that I, did something like this where like, like I said, I'd always forget charts and this and that, and I just wasn't. I love playing piano, but I just wasn't able to get around to the other stuff that being a musician involves.
Sure.
So long story short, I get kicked out. I go home.
So what happened? Like how did he deliver that message to you? Was he furious? Like I'm really curious.
He was furious. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was livid. He's like, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah,
like, what the heck, man? Like, it's not just you on the line, but this kid can't play the gig either.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to borrow his keyboard. Like, I don't know what the heck to do with you. You keep doing this, forgetting stuff, blah blah blah. Really like not holding back at all.
Yeah. And not undeserved, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had a point. I mean, my parents were there. This is back again
my God.
when I didn't have a car and I didn't have my license.
Yeah.
Not to say that you have to get your car and you have to get a license if you want to be a musician, but I was relying. I had a buddy of mine actually drove me to the gig,
right?
Because I couldn't do this myself. So we had to do all of this. He drove me to the gig, lugged the keyboard around with me, and my parents showed up to the gig, and voila! I couldn't play because I didn't have anything. It was really very humiliating experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, that kind of changed my whole approach with just how I deal with anything professionally. I don't take anything for granted.
Right. So after that happened,
time I forgot a patch key. Say what?
So after that happened, what were the changes that you made?
Well, I sat down. I had to figure out a way to make sure.
So you really did sit down with yourself and be like, "Oh my God, I can't let that happen again." Like you really.
Yeah, I literally spent a week telling myself, am I made? I was young and stupid also, and I was like saying dumb things like, am I really made to do this career? Like, is this worth it? Blah blah blah. Like I was ready to switch careers basically.
But I think those are
dramatic as it sounds. Yeah.
Those are legitimate questions. I mean, every musician does not show up to a certain place from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Like you got to schedule your shit. You got to get back to people. Like every gig is like a negotiation. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a simple. It's not a simple. The stuff aside from music is super complicated.
Oh, it's a huge part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to, spend a couple of days just to think of what I really wanted out of, and it's going to sound huge, but yeah, what I wanted to do with my life,
Absolutely.
So, I fast forward a couple of years later, I figure out how to manage all of that. I mean, in terms of organizational, well, I ended up buying a key. Well, actually, I didn't buy my dad bought my Nord, which, because he's like, well, if you're going to be a professional musician, you need a keyboard. You can't just be borrowing keyboards left and right from people. You need your own keyboard and you need to, get the best keyboard that you can, blah, blah, blah. So he bought that. So now I have my own keyboard, which is great. So basically what my whole thing now is I always kind of try to plan for everything, as best as I can. So in terms of like if I'm going to a gig or whatnot, like I have my keyboard, I have cables, I have extra cables, I have power cables, I have extra power cables. I have a bit of extra everything, basically.
Yeah. I think well, probably every professional musician is like this.
Yeah.
But we have almost a duplicate of our entire rig. You know what I mean? Like maybe not the keyboard itself. You don't bring two keyboards to every gig, but but that's what you need, right?
But you do have to have a contingency plan if anything breaks down.
Yeah.
Where's the closest music store, or where's the
Exactly.
I mean, I think ideally I'd have to learn how to actually, open up my keyboards and repair them, but I don't think I'm there yet.
No, I think that's
one day, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean,
that would
if
be
the instrument itself, then you're kind of out of luck, unless there's an opening band or something that you can borrow stuff from. But that's it. We got to have the backup cables for everything. I remember doing this. I don't want to make this again all about me, but it is a story about gear. Doing this gear up north somewhere in a cottage, and it was with the organ band, and Cordell is super on top of his stuff. He always has the backup, and his tuner is ready, and that's another story. But anyway, and we I think we were just like setting up, and he starts playing, and a string breaks, but it's not like It's not the top. It's like the A string or something like that that
yeah,
breaks.
yeah,
And it's just like, oh my, what the hell am I gonna do with this? And it's like, okay, well, I'll just get a backup string. And for some reason, he didn't have any backup strings. And we're up in this cottage in the middle of nowhere. Like there's no, and it's like 9 p.m. at night. There's no stores open or anything, you know. So he ends up having to play the whole set with like a broken string. Anyway, it was, you know, it's one of those effed up things. But that's it. We always we got to have a backup everything. You never know what's gonna break. You know, I have, and the more gear you have, the more backup items you need. You know, it's just
exactly. Yeah, and also I think another lesson that I definitely learned from that was, you can't. You know, at the end of the day, you're responsible for whatever happens to you. You know, it's a lot of people, I know it's very easy for people to just kind of put blame on whoever, whatever. But at the end of the day, you got to make sure that you have the tools and that you're in charge of you. You know, you can't put blame on anything or anyone else.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
And you got to operate everything, whether it's music or other, with that whole mentality, right?
Yeah. Well, it's you know, we're all entrepreneurs and like what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, we're all independent workers. So, you know, we're all judged by the last gig, and people may not, you know, care that, you know, this cable was missing or whatever. It's just like, well, I was not able to perform, and that sucks, you know. So
so you owe it to yourself to, you know, make sure that you have the tools at your disposition and that you prepare as much as possible for anything to go down.
Yeah, you know, it kind of ties into. I've been working on this kind of like, you know me, I always have 20 projects in my mind. I have this like sort of workshop planned for like tools of the professional musician or something like that.
That's cool.
And there's some things like this that I want to get into there. I think also oh wow, this screen is really bright. I just had my laptop out to check for the messages. So
many technical.
I know
gears.
This is freaking ridiculous. Anyway, if I just had like a super fast machine, you know. So I put this thing up asking whether people would subscribe to like an Urban Science Patreon if there was one. I didn't put any like details in there, but I'm just like, man, if I had a faster computer, like so many of these problems would go away, you know, like if I had like some intense gaming rig or whatever, like so that you have multiple cores and like, man, I'm sure this anyway, whatever. I just wonder whether
you also have a lot going on all the time.
It's true. I'm like, I have like, anyway, whatever. Let's not get into that. But but I just getting back to what you were talking about of professionalism, you know, I think that these are all critical things. Oh yeah, what I wanted to say was the preparation thing. It's like, you know, in Montreal, let's say there's like, I don't know if this number is accurate, but let's say there's 100 active or 200 active professional keyboard players or piano players in Montreal, right? So why is somebody going to call David Osei instead of call somebody else, you know? And if people know, oh, David Osei, he's reliable, man. Like he brings all his stuff, he's ready to go, whatever. And maybe you don't play as good as, you know, some other guy or whatever, you know, and they're like, yeah, but that other guy's not reliable, man. He showed up like an hour late to the gig, and you know what I mean? So all that stuff is sometimes more important than the playing. I mean, of course, the playing is important too, you know. And then the prep can also be, in a sense, like, you know, let's say you're doing, I don't know, a set of tango music or something, and you're like, man, I don't know tango music, but I'm gonna learn it all. And people know that you're the guy who's gonna go and prepare and listen to all this. And I think you are the guy who would just, you know, learn all the stuff in advance and get yourself into that, not just, you know, pull some random crap out of your ass, right? So
I feel like most of the stuff that I have gotten, generally, like, because as you say, like, there's so, like, who am I to, you know, I'm definitely not the best keyboard player in Montreal, nowhere near that, you know. And there are a lot of fantastic musicians out there in the city, and I feel like those who end up having careers and who can make a living doing music are definitely those who are, you know, what's it called, you know, who are organized and who know their stuff. And at the end of the day, it comes down to way more than just the musical stuff.
Absolutely.
Like let's say, like, just touring, for example, like you spend way more time with just people relations and interacting with people more than you spend time rehearsing and playing the actual music, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a crappy personality, no one's gonna hire you, right? It's just how it is.
Yeah.
It's just like any job, I guess, but especially in our profession where a lot of it is
where you practically have to live together
dependent
for a
on,
certain amount of time, you know?
Exactly. You
Yeah.
gotta live with people. You even on stage, you know, you're always interacting with people, and off stage as well, of course. Yeah, it's super important.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't forget that.
So you talked a little bit about touring and stuff. So you've been playing with Boogie Wonder for how long have you been playing with Boogie? You took over Calder. So Calder used to play in Boogie, quit it a few years. Well, you'll tell me how many years ago, and then you were playing. So tell me about that a little bit.
So I joined Boogie Wonder Band. It was the summer of 2015, July 1st. That was my first gig.
Okay.
Yeah. Man, that has been a really fun experience.
I'm sure.
I got to experience a lot of things I never thought I would get to experience.
Tell me about that.
So for those who don't know, Boogie Wonder Band has been around for a good 23 years now.
Holy shit!
Yeah, man.
Are you even 23 years old?
Shut up, Vince.
I don't even. Well, you must be like what, 26 or something. I don't know.
I was 4 or 5 years old when they started the band. Basically, yeah. But it's still going strong, man. And they're still they get the contracts, they get the shows, man. Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah. I've seen Boogie once. You weren't in it. It was with. Oh wait, were you? I don't even remember if you were in it at that point, but it was when Freddie was still in it. It was like one of Freddie's last shows, and I wanted. I was like, well, I gotta see what he does with this.
Yeah,
and,
so I was there then.
Okay, yeah,
his last shows.
It blew me away, man. It was at the Rialto.
Oh man, yeah.
It was at the Rialto. It blew me away. It was a fucking amazing show. It was.
It's well it's really well produced.
C'est bien
it's
rodé,
really well
you know?
well produced. Bien rodé, man.
Yeah.
Very well produced.
Yeah.
And like I said, like they've been doing this for 23 years. They understand the business. They understand how to work a crowd. Yeah. And half of our shows are outside of the province, you know, and they got fans in the States. I went to Mumbai actually with this band.
Yeah.
That was crazy. You know, and when we got a bunch of people in Mumbai crazy about the band who've never heard of the band before, you know? Yeah.
That's amazing.
That speaks for a lot.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, so Boogie Wonder Band, so it's a 70s disco, a tribute to disco band, right? So complete with the wardrobe to the choreography, everything.
Yeah.
You know,
lighting effects.
Lighting effects. Yeah. I mean, we travel with the whole crew. We run with the same sound guys.
How big is the total crew? How big is the total crew for
so it's a 10-piece band, and then we have a 4-people crew. So our manager also rides along with us. 2 guys who run one guy who runs monitors, so our in-ears or whatnot, and one guy who runs the FOH or front of house, who run with the sound for that. And we also have a lighting guy who is also in charge of just the general like aesthetic of the stage and how it looks and whatnot.
Right. What about what about David Osei's personal assistant? Is that also included in there?
No, I don't have that. That's not. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. Okay, all right. You got to change.
Boogie,
See, that's why you left the band, man. You're like, I need
personal assistant, man. Come on, wear that. No, I'm kidding. Definitely don't need that. I'm good. But what was I saying? Yeah. So that has been a great experience. That has definitely been a great experience. Just to get to travel. Play with these folk who have been doing it for like so long and whatnot. And then
so you started off as just a guy in the band, and you near the end started becoming the musical director as well.
Yeah, so when Freddie was in, he kind of was more or less the musical director. Like he'd run the rehearsals.
Oh, nice! I didn't know that.
Sound checks and whatnot. Exactly, yeah. And then when he left, I ended up taking the position. So it basically just entailed that.
Oh my God! Hold on a second. We just got a donation from FP. I don't even know who this is, but FP just donated $10. Thank you, FP.
Look at that!
Holy crap! Yes, we're gonna be millionaires. No. Also, I'll take a moment to shout out to Marika Galea, How you doing? But anyway, so you actually started as musical director. I didn't know that you started right on at the top as musical
Well, no, when I got in, Freddie was still in the band, so he was he was
but
doing
there was
that.
a transition
Yeah.
happening.
And then when he left, so he left in 2017. So this was my second year in the band, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so they kind of gave me this this extra role of musical director or whatever that means. Which in the Boogie Wonder Band, that just entailed that so I'd run sound checks, I'd run rehearsals, I'd run the little powwow that we did before shows. I guess. Obviously, so this is Boogie Cindy, who's the bass player. She's the one who started the band. Obviously, it's her band, and her and our manager Mike generally have the overall direction of what they want the band to sound like and what they want to do with the band and how the shows look. If we're working on a new show or whatever. And as musical director, basically, I just kind of made that happen. So whether it be writing charts or running rehearsals or going through arrangements of different medleys that we're doing. That's kind of what I did for the band for a couple of years. Yeah.
Okay.
On top of the whole playing.
Right.
But man, this band definitely kicked my butt in terms of oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I got in, it was the first time that I was running 2 keyboards, and
right.
I had they have about 5.5, 6 hours worth of repertoire to learn.
Crazy.
Of every disco song that you can think of.
Yeah, and it's not just the songs; it's the choreography, it's all the sounds. It's like
I mean, they gave me a pass on the choreography, but I felt bad seeing everyone just went nuts on stage.
Yeah.
So I figured I'll learn some of this. It's kind of become my thing now. I'm definitely down to.
Yeah.
I got my left foot up and my right foot there, and do a little twirl while I do these chords. Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
For the record, David can definitely dance. He's got some moves.
Well, some people don't agree, but
Oh, we got some haters. Uh oh.
Oh yeah. Well, I try my best.
You do a good job.
Well.
But
and yeah, that gig was hard at first, man. Because like I said, it was the first time that I had to play with 2 keyboards.
Yeah.
3 keyboards actually, because I ended up bringing a guitar as well.
Yes, I've seen actually
figuring out that whole choreography.
Yeah.
Where to play what, when this foot goes there and here.
Keep talking.
Okay. And
oh, damn it. I can't full screen this.
Oh well. There you go.
Oh, whoops. Hold on. I forgot to share this with the viewers. There we go. But I can't full screen it, so getting down. All right. We'll just stop there.
You got me. You got me.
But hey, you sent me that link, man. You're like, oh, okay, you can play this during the stream. He's pretending like he doesn't know.
Well, because I figured you'd do it anyway. So I figured if I gave you a couple of things, it would help my case out. Because I knew you were gonna do a deep dive. I definitely knew you were gonna do. Of
course, I was gonna.
But anyways, so as I was saying, Boogie Wonder Band.
Yes.
One big thing about this band is that everything you hear and see is actually played by the musicians.
Right.
So
there's 0 backing tracks, not a single backing track.
backing track.
Wow.
No
amazing.
backing.
Amazing.
A couple of times it's happened quite a few times that after a show someone would come up to us, musicians even, like they'd come up to us, there's definitely backing tracks. No, there's no backing tracks.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying this gig was hard at first for me, because it was really the first time that I had to, you learn the songs, but you learn the songs exactly as they're played on the record, and you figure out the sounds, and you got to find the sounds. And if you don't have the sounds on your keyboard, well, this was a great class for me just to learn how to learn to program sounds and whatnot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially the disco era, like there are a ton of synths and Rhodes and patches that you gotta know, and you gotta they have their specific sounds and whatnot, and it makes the song.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when you first joined. And I think I asked Freddie, like, oh, so how's David working out? How's it working out? And he's like, oh, yeah, he's coming along. He's got some sounds to work out, but he's, So, I mean, I think it's obvious you got to, tackle one problem at a time. It's like, first, just learn the songs, and then, like, let's get the sounds right and whatever, Yeah,
it was definitely a huge learning curve for me, but I'm glad I got the chance to do that.
You had played in, like, or had you played in like pop cover bands before that, or
I did,
yeah,
but not anything to this extent. You know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I've done other things where like, and sure, like where it would just be an hour set that you prepare,
right?
You know, so
right, not 6 hours.
Exactly. So that's maybe in an hour set, you got most of your songs that are going to be Rhodes and piano sounds, and then maybe a couple of, you know, the cheesy pop saws or whatever.
Yeah.
But with Boogie Wonder Band, the thing is that in the disco era, there are so many types of sounds.
Yeah.
You know, and so many patches and you know, this is when synthesizers were getting big as well. So everyone was experimenting with that. So, you know, just saws, you know, synths and all kinds of effects on top of that, where everyone was just putting them all together. And yeah, it was definitely a lot to go through.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
And so you quit Boogie this year in order
I did,
well, not in order to, but you were going to start playing with Dominique Fils-Aimé. And then COVID hit, and that was the end of that.
There goes my
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but it's life.
Yeah, that's life. Did you end up doing any gigs with Dominique, or
I did one show. It was in late February, right before everything started. Yeah. That's a totally different show.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Very different. Yeah.
So hopefully, you know, we'll come out of this at some point and get those projects up and going again. But so actually, who's replacing you in Boogie?
I don't know if it's official yet.
Oh,
so I don't know if I can
that's
say.
okay. That's okay.
But,
I won't.
Yeah, so they do have a replacement.
Well,
he's a great. Yeah. He's a good keyboard player, so they're in good hands.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I just realized it may not be, you know, and you know they have to have the profile on the website of, you know, I don't know, Jimmy Afro or whatever the hell they're gonna. Oh, sorry, I don't know if that's.
You know, that's not what they're gonna call it.
You know what I mean? There's always these
Jimmy
ridiculous
Afro.
names.
What kind of
I
names
don't know.
is that?
You know what I'm saying? Although actually,
boy.
maybe this translates directly to. Well, I'll save that for later, I think.
What do you have planned on? Oh my gosh.
I got lots of stuff planned.
Vincent Stephen-Ong.
Although, also, if you're getting tired, David, just let me know, and you're like, okay, I'm done, you know. And again, I'll mention that.
I'm so done. I'm just kidding.
Anybody got questions? Feel free to put them down below. Yeah, we talked a little bit about, you know, actually, what I wanted to mention a couple of things. So first, you mentioned earlier about the gig at House of Jazz with Emil and Anthony, and really developing that whole connection that y'all had, and kind of what I wanted to mention, or what I wanted to describe. So, you know, a lot of connections in music are just like friends of friends, and obviously friends are people that you're playing with, and whatever, that often happens that way. So I wanted to talk about your first time at Le Cypher, and I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were going to school with and had a combo with Danny McKinnon. Is that correct?
I did, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
So for those who don't know, Danny McKinnon is a guitar player who played with us in the very, very early days of Urban Science, and then he went off and is doing all kinds of big things, touring all over the world with Pomo and other artists. He's played at, I want to say Coachella or something. Like he last minute subbed for another guitarist at Coachella. Anyway, crazy.
He's done a ton of stuff.
He's doing all kinds of stuff all over the place.
Touring the world over now.
You know, he's on like
concerts and stuff.
Yeah, he was on like a couple of Mac Miller tracks, and you know, all kinds of Anderson .Paak. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, back in the day, he was a McGill student and was in a combo with David Osei.
Yeah. And we started a.
So tell me all about
combos. It. Yeah. So we had two combos. The first one we did was just I don't know. He liked how I played. I liked how he played. He's like, you're cool. I'm cool. Whatever. Let's start a combo. And we just, I feel like we played everything that wasn't McGill to play, basically. So we did no standards. We did nothing of that. And we just, whatever we wanted to play. So it's a lot of R&B and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was fun.
So that was the
first.
And
then the year out, and then the semester after that, we figured, let's make a Robert Glasper combo. So we just played a bunch of Robert Glasper music. Both from his jazz days to you know, the Black Radio album, and we did that, and
Teo just
that was a lot of fun.
Teo just say, "Woo, legacy Robert Glasper combo."
I actually met Theo because of that combo.
Oh, really? Wait.
Yeah, because I think
Theo,
because he was a young guy at Vanier or something back in the day.
Okay.
And I think he came to see our show at Upstairs.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and I think after that I ran into him.
I think I might have. Yes, I did see the show at Upstairs. Yes,
you did, because my first Cypher gig.
Yes,
with y'all was
with
you
combo.
booking me as an opening act with that combo.
Yeah. I think that's why, or not why, but that was one of the reasons why I went. Maybe I also just wanted to see like Danny outside of, like what is he doing, in school and whatever. But yeah, sorry. So you had the Glasper combo.
Yeah, exactly. What was I saying? Theo, I met Theo through that combo kind of, because he came to that show, and then I ran into him a few weeks after that, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing, man? I'm a fan of Robert Glasper, so I figured I'd come to see your show, and you're dope, blah, blah, blah. Nice to meet you." Nice. And then now look at him now. He's dope as ever.
He's doing his thing, man. He's
Theo.
Yeah. Building. He's going places,
He definitely is going places. Yeah. If y'all don't know Theo, man, he's definitely one to look for.
Yes.
He's going places.
Theo Abelard on Instagram, and he is going to be doing an interview. Maybe, I don't think I've given him a date yet, but probably be next month. He'll be doing an interview on this series.
Snap! So if any of you guys don't like my answers, just go watch that one.
See what Theo has to say. So that's it. So through Danny.
What? Chords? I have to say stuff about that.
He has stuff to say about chords, I'm sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about chords. I'm just about feeling.
So yeah, Danny McKinnon, Glasper Band, and then so was the first time that you were at Cypher with the Glasper Band, or did you ever come before?
No, I came because once again my friend Nadia was like, "Yo, you should go check out Le Cypher. It's happening." So we went one evening, and it was a lot of fun.
Did you play that
I
first
came
time?
to jam. Say what?
Did you play that very first time?
I did.
Okay, so I do know the first time.
I knew a bunch of people who were there, and they came up to you, and they're like, "Oh yeah, David Osei, you should let him play."
Come up.
So you let me play. I think it was like second or third jam. I came up. I played "The Stakes Is High."
I remember very well.
Yeah, this is hip hop.
And it is. It is absolutely.
But no one could follow because no one knew the song, and it was definitely not a smart choice of mine. Because if you guys don't know, "Stakes Is High," it's like a 3-bar loop or something.
Yeah, it's a 3-bar
with
loop,
a bunch
and
of
the
chords.
last chord happens on beat 4 of the second bar. So you, in addition to being a 3-bar loop, it's like deceptive where the 1 is because of that accent. Anyway.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot. Yeah. So that was the first jam that I played.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a train wreck.
Well,
and we switched it up and ended up just playing an F minor jam.
Which was not. But I mean, it's one of those things that we learn, like, what is appropriate and not appropriate, or what needs, like, because I think you were like, oh, we're just gonna do an F minor thing, and so you start playing this thing. But like it has a specific bass line, like that line is specific, so it's just learning that if you're going to do something like that, it has to be played very clearly and very specific, or even that, like, unless I feel like if it was a 4-bar loop, we would have been okay, but, and I can't remember who was up on stage too. Like, you never know who, like, do people know the song? Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's the thing. I think it was like, there were a bunch of people who, it was like house band people and whatnot.
Yeah. You know what?
I think it's because what it was, I wanted to impress y'all so much. I'm like, oh yeah, I know hip hop. Stakes is high.
Hey, I don't blame you at all. Like I've many times said that like definitely the first Cypher ever was fucking garbage. That's just true. Musically speaking. And the reason why we got into repertoire so much was because it wasn't sounding like hip hop for my taste. And the fact that people couldn't follow Stakes is High, it's like, oh my god, guys, come on, Stakes is High. Like, this is we started anyway. That's why we started like kind of building up a repertoire and being like, okay, here's stuff that everybody has to know, at least know what it sounds like, and everyone's coming from different backgrounds.
But I think anyone would be forgiven to, Stakes is High is a tricky one, and you have to actually sit down and figure it out.
Sure.
It's not one of those hip hop songs you can just kind of, I know how this goes.
Exactly.
It's not that simple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was your first, and then you started coming some more, and eventually I forget exactly when I first asked you to, be part of the house band or how that worked exactly.
It was the Robert Glasper tribute band thing.
Oh, so you were in the house band as well that night?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's how it started out. I think because back then it's when I think only Jean-Michel, Frédéric, and Anomaly were the only two keyboard players.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And from what I remember, I think that night you had no one available.
Yeah.
So it just kind of worked out. Yeah. And since then, you gave me a spot every month. And then here we are now.
That's history.
Blabbing about whatever is going through my mind to whoever's going to listen.
You're like an old cipher guy now, old urban science guy.
Definitely, yeah, sure. That works.
Okay, so that's cool. I'm gonna look through my notes here a little bit. Oh yeah, I wanted to tie into something which you said earlier about the Glasper band that you had at McGill and all this. Was that you were trying not to play jazz school stuff, and that McGill kind of made you realize that you didn't want to be a jazz musician. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, did you think you wanted to be before, or yeah?
I think, so here's the thing. So I always went into music thinking to myself, well, I guess I'm good at this stuff. Might as well continue. So I was just kind of seeing how far it would take me, right? So I did the whole school route of music. And by the time I hit McGill, obviously when you're doing school for music, you're going to have a very specific view of what music is and what the music industry is and what being a musician is like, right? So going to McGill, obviously their curriculum is a lot more focused on, in my opinion, the traditional standards of playing jazz and learning standards and that whole tradition, which is great and all, And I feel like as great an education that was, I feel like sometimes it doesn't necessarily prepare you for the real world of today as a musician.
Yeah,
it gears you to a specific tradition, and you definitely come out of that. If you want to be go into jazz and go into the whole bebop tradition and continue that, it's great. But I just feel like for me, for what the interest that I had at the time, it just wasn't enough.
Right. Well, I mean, there's also just the reality of like, there's a few things. One is that the whole program is built around this. Like, it's not like they have people that could teach, how to play other things, and then
though I think it is changing. I mean, like they just recently, because for those who don't know, so just in bass, for example, if you wanted to play bass at McGill, you have to learn upright because they had no electric players at the time. Yeah. Now they have, I believe, what's his name?
Rémi Jean?
Rémi Jean. Who's teaching electric there. So that's a change.
So I know many electric players, including Rémi Jean, who did not get accepted to McGill because they didn't play upright. And it's funny that now he's teaching electric at McGill after having been rejected. So anyway, I guess there is a slow change, but it's not like they have like pop oriented classes or anything like that,
Exactly. I mean, that's not what their program is built on. They're really a program that's more built on understanding the theory behind it, understanding the tradition behind it, and it's geared to making you the best jazz musician you can be, basically.
Sure. Yeah. I guess, but also what you're talking about in terms of it's just like it's supposed to be this jazz performance program, but like of the jazz musicians in the world, like what percentage of jazz musicians perform jazz? Actually, just start there. What percentage of jazz musicians in the world perform jazz to make a living?
Yeah, for sure.
Like 0.01% or something like that. And then how many of them perform like the jazz that they want to play for a living? That's even smaller, right? Like, you know what I mean? Not including all the corporate gigs and whatever, So,
sure. And again, like I don't want to be one to start saying, if that's what you want to do, then by all means do it. I definitely don't regret having done McGill, but what I would have regretted is if I only put all my focus on the McGill stuff. If I'd only done that, then there's no way I'd be playing with Urban Science. There's no way I'd be able to tour with Boogie Wonder Band and learn those skills as well. I just feel like the fact that I did McGill, but at the same time had the opportunity to learn, I guess, just the school of life, if you want to call
Sure.
it that, in terms of gigging, actually being on the field and actually learning different genres and playing with different people and amassing a different skill set. That also definitely helped out more than just doing the whole school route.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's like, it's jazz performance program, and I think that the emphasis is definitely on jazz, and it's much less on performance. That's my take on it. Because if you actually want to perform for a living, I don't feel like it teaches you the things that you need to know to perform to make a living. Whereas going out there and actually doing it teaches you so much more. Anyway, that's my
For
personal
sure,
take
yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
But
I don't think you go to school necessarily to learn how to perform. I feel like you go to school to learn music.
But
Right?
I'm saying if you're focusing on such a small,
For some people, anyway.
yeah, I just feel like if you're focusing on such a
I
small
see what you
thing, yeah, if you want to be a performer, you have to also know many different styles, and like that's just if you want to get I don't know, if your bread and butter is like a TV gig, like playing in a band or whatever, it's not going to be jazz. It's like you got to know how to do other things.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, little webcam adjustment there. But anyway, that's just my.
Oh,
my
look
take
at
on it.
that.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So let me just go through. Actually, let me get to some of the other questions that were submitted in advance. Let me just pull that up. We had some people asking questions on IG, and I want to make sure that I actually get to all those. And if you have any questions, please put them down. Well, let's get to some of the amusing ones. So, Patrice Lino says, "How to keep a badass good looking while being busy as fuck." You got a very nice profile picture. What can I say?
What is that? Oh well.
No, it is.
Call
It
it
is.
luck.
Well, you were
I
saying
don't
that
know.
it was like a friend of yours that took the photo and stuff. It
was a friend of mine who needed it for her class or something.
Yeah.
So and then I just figured, why not use it to my advantage?
Well, it's been.
Look at
used.
that.
Yeah.
I'm just using people. I'm a horrible person.
Remy Cormier also said, "How did he become such a hunk?" So.
Well, he should know. He's the one who.
It's true.
Anyways.
He's getting all hunky, or he is all hunky. But that actually is one of your passions in the sense of like working out. Like the other day I was texting you and you're like, "Hold on, I'm doing some crunches right now."
Well, passion or not, yeah, I do work out sometimes.
I didn't pull this one out, but I did look through your YouTube, and I think one of the accounts had like your favorites were public, and there was one video of like how to get 6-pack abs. Like a workout video. But anyway.
Oh boy. Look at that.
So it's true. That is one of his passions. So actually we do have some great questions from Clarel. Clarel said, "What?" Hey, Clarel. He said, "What is your favorite gig that you've ever played?"
That's a hard question. You can't ask me that.
Or one of your favorite gigs, or one of your favorite experiences, or I don't know.
There's so many. Oh man. Well, here's one. When I played with Clarel, that was a fun gig. We did a show last year at the Jazz Fest. That was fun.
Yeah. Clarel, by the way, if you don't know, Clarel is an amazing, amazing soul singer. Holy crap.
Oh yeah.
Great performer.
Honest. Man, so good. But favorite gigs. There's so many to choose from. Basically every time I've done the Jazz Fest gig, that's always been just one of my highlights. I mean, I love Montreal. I love the city. I love the fact that we have this huge Jazz Fest in our backyard every summer. That's great.
Yeah.
So to be able to play there is just even better.
Yeah.
And if I were to say another one, I mentioned it before. Definitely playing in Mumbai was nuts.
Yeah.
Just
wow.
being in such a far away place.
How long were you in the city?
We were there for a couple of days.
Okay.
I think we got there maybe 2 days before the show.
Okay.
So we had like a day or two to get acquainted with just the time zone and whatnot, and then we did the show.
How did you find, like, people always, I've never been to India, and people always say that it's like a crazy culture shock and whatever, but I've never been, so.
There's so many people, like,
right.
for one.
Yeah.
There's just people everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're looking for culture shock, India is definitely a good spot, because how can I describe it? There's a lot going on. There's just people all over the place. Everything is super crowded. You smell food all the time. People are super nice. Yeah, the gig itself actually went super well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The gear was all there. Everything was like top shape. They fed us. They had everything. Yeah, it was great.
But you know what? It's funny how those things, like, I think a lot of non-musicians don't get it. Like, for you to say they fed us, but man, we've all had so many fucking horrible backstage meals and all this stuff. Like, just just awful, and so when you get treated well with that kind of thing, it's really a nice
it's great.
Nice
they put us in a hotel every day. The hotel had food just for us and whatnot all day long.
Nice.
The day of the show itself, I mean, there was supper after the show. They hosted a feast for us and whatnot, where we got to kind of meet the organizers and whatnot, and they fed us some more. Yeah, It was great.
So Clara's Collection was the best gig, and I noticed that you didn't mention Urban Science, but that's fine. That's fine. It's okay. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Because those gigs suck, man. Come on, they suck.
But I actually
I did say Jazz Fest, and Urban Science has done Jazz Fest multiple times.
That's true. True. But
jeez, man.
Just kidding. But I was gonna ask you as like kind of a or side question, whatever. So. What the heck? Oh, I guess we're getting that same question again for some reason, Dan. Anyway, whatever. What I was going to ask was, so that's best experience. What was, without maybe, or you can name the names if you want to. What was your worst gig experience?
Oh boy.
Or was it the one where Christelle Morissette fired you?
Well, yeah, that definitely counts. But I've definitely had gigs where just nothing was happening musically or in terms of anything else, do I have an example right now? If I think of one, I'll name it later. But it would just suck to name a gig and then that person's actually watching and they're like, wait a minute, that's my gig.
Oh yeah, you never.
This guy.
It's true. You got to keep it kind of vague. I guess, although one of the interesting conversations that I think you were, I'm not sure, but I know either you, Emil. So this keeps the blame kind of spread out and we don't know who we're talking about, but either you, Emil, or Anthony, we were talking about basically we were talking about gigging experiences where we got either seriously vibed out or heavily criticized by the band leader or by somebody else in the band, and how that affected us either in a good or a bad way, or how we took that. Have you had those kinds of
I think that must be Emil.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't you, but you can imagine.
I think I know what he's talking about.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I totally get what he said, what he means. Because but I mean, at the end of the day, though, it is part of the game, though.
Absolutely,
to a certain extent.
Absolutely. And better to get that, like, than to just like F up on stage over and over and nobody tells you,
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I think that was Emil who mentioned that. That must have been a House of Jazz gig.
Oh, okay. I think we might need to take a little break. But actually, do you want to keep going or do you want to end it here? What are you feeling?
It's up to you, man.
I'm really enjoying this, and I'd like to ask you maybe a couple more questions. So
sure.
I could why don't we we're going to take a very short break, and meanwhile, I'm going to play something. I'm going to play something of David's while we're taking a break. All right. So we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to let you know David's taking a piss because he had too much beer. Of course that. Oh, we got some questions. Franklin Nintan. David, I noticed on top of your really amazing keyboard playing, you'd like to sprinkle in the effect pedals, modify keys for other things. What do you like about that? What does it add? Okay, cool. We'll get to that question for sure, Franklin. And meanwhile, let me see here. What can I play? Actually, if you're watching and David's not here, I'm totally going to get him to react to this. I am totally getting him to react to that in a moment. But meanwhile, let me just hide that. And here's another video of him playing. I don't know if there's effects pedals in this solo, but here's a little playing with Freddie V's band.
He's a keyboard player. He's a singer. God damn it, he's a sound man for the night. I want you guys to make some noise on keyboard. David Osei.
That classic Freddie V stance.
Who is this guy? Who is? Isn't he a joker? Oh man. Too many notes. Too many notes. Shut him up already. Yeah, it was kind of hot in July. Get it.
Are your headphones in? Woo!
That was fun. That was fun. That was a fun show, actually.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
I work
really.
this man too hard.
What was this? Sorry. Yeah, so that was David playing with Freddie V and the Foundation at the Bootlegger, of course. Yeah, it's funny. Do you have a hard time watching yourself perform, like watching or listening or whatever?
It's mixed. It's mixed. It really depends on what it is.
Yeah, I'm like the biggest. I'm the biggest hater of your playing. No, of my own playing. You know, like every time I've done a recording session in the past, I just like curl up into a ball. I'm just like, oh my god, this is horrible. Like I can't.
Oh,
stand
for
it.
sure. Oh, recordings are hard to listen to.
It's the
Recordings
worst.
are very
Yeah.
hard to listen.
I guess maybe the
live is a bit more forgiving.
Well, that's it. You're like, whatever, it's happened, and also it's kind of become this ubiquitous culture of everything being recorded, right? So like when you play live,
Yeah.
like I'm expecting some cell phone video, and it is what
That's
it
the
is.
thing. It's kind of part of the game.
Yeah.
I'm kind of forced to
Yeah, I remember
do that.
years ago playing with the organ band that we do a jam session during Jazz Fest, and somebody either was recorded or was recording or wanted to record, and this was, I don't know, maybe, I mean, that thing has been around for like 18 years or something. So this was a long time ago, and the band leader like came over and was like, do you think we should allow that? Like allow him to record? It's like, and I'm like, this was still early days of cell phones and whatever, right? And I was like, man, in like 3 years time, that won't even be a question. You
Oh,
know,
man.
it's just going to be everyone everywhere is recording. And she was like, really? Like, I don't know, but it seems, I'm like, man, it's just promo. Nobody's going to sell the live recording of you performing it like online
No, for sure.
or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it's funny how we've just kind of turned around on that it's become like, we want
It's
people
part of
to
the game
record.
now, yeah.
Yeah, it's more so. It's more like we want, like back then it was like, I don't know, it's my intellectual property and all this. And now we want people to Instagram our show and like, you know, because we realize the promotional value is greater than the any potential loss, you know.
Definitely. Yeah.
But anyway, we got a question here for Franklin.
Okay.
The question was, David, I noticed that on top of your already amazing keyboard playing, you like to sprinkle
thanks.
in the effect pedals, modify keys for others things. What do you like about that? What does it add? So maybe you could talk about the effects pedals and maybe where you got those ideas from or you know, whatever. And talk about that a little bit.
So, that's a good question. I just love how because basically the way I've seen keyboards and synths, especially of late, because I feel like, especially, you know, coming out of McGill again and whatnot, like there's a lot of focus on, as you know, as a piano player, there are only so many sounds that you can get out of it, right? Especially if you're only playing piano.
Mm-hmm.
But now when you add a keyboard and you add effects and you add pedals, it now adds just another dimension of I guess things to work with, you know. Whereas, you know, usually we like to think of chords and melodies and whatnot. I like to think also just in terms of soundscapes and and that also as another, like a third dimension, if you want, to that to my playing, right? So whereas if I wanted to create some sort of movement, on a piano, like using different chords and different melodies, if I wanted to simplify that, I can simplify whatever chords or whatever melodies I'm doing, and then just use the effects to kind of bring music to another way or another place. I one of my bigger influences in terms of that, if for those who don't know, there's this keyboard player named Julian Polak. I think he goes by the name of J3PO, and he's huge with oh, look at that. He's huge with just the whole pedals and whatnot. What can I say about this? Pedals. Yeah, no, it's definitely changed my whole approach with sounds and whatnot. Sorry.
Oh, we are you okay? We can talk at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
I put the volume kind of low. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, it's because I thought you were saying something. So.
No. Go for it. Well, I was just gonna say that. I'll do the transition or whatever. J3PO performs with a band called The Lesson GK, which is the primary inspiration for Le Cypher, both musically and the concept, which is just a hip hop jam session with a live band. This is one of the videos right here, and that is J3PO with his assortment of pedals.
Yeah.
There's actually 3 keyboard players. Well, I mean, they've been through many different iterations, but there's 3 keyboard players. I think you'll only see 2 of them in this one. J3PO, and the other one I'm thinking of is, oh my God, not Christian, but
yeah.
What's
the other one? Nick Samurai.
Nick Samurai, yeah, and both of them.
And he's also a big pedal head.
Exactly, yeah.
Where like the pedals are part of his sound,
Absolutely.
And just like how saxophone players, there's so many different things you can do with the way you blow your sax. Sometimes with a synth you're a bit more limited. Well, not really, because you have synths and you have sounds, but I feel like just adding pedals just adds another dimension. Right? And especially just the fact that it's not very conventional, I feel like it gives me an edge. If you want.
Well, but that's legit. I mean, in the sense of differentiating yourself, right? Like,
yeah,
every keyboard player knows how to play an F minor chord or whatever. Like, but you can, have different ways of spicing it up or approaching it or whatever. Or it's like what we were talking about earlier in terms of, you're playing.
Vince, I can't hear you that well, actually.
Oh, is it? Maybe it's because of the audio playing at the same time.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm just gonna pause that for a second. So I was just saying that, earlier when you were playing your little idea there of G7 to C, I mean, how do you make that actually something, and so some of it is melody, some of it is rhythm, some of it is the approach, like if you're going to gliss up to it or whatever, break the chord up, but then of course there's also using different kinds of effects to kind of attack it differently or come off of it differently.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, playing, like, for example, if you're playing a basic synth sound, the way it comes up and the way it comes down, like, you can play it where, like, the attack is right there, and as soon as you hit the note, there you got your full chord, or you can hit it and play with the attack time, for example, and you'll have more of a pad sound. And those 2 sounds will definitely dictate how you approach playing that sound, right? You're not gonna play. I mean, the way I think of it, like, I don't play piano like a piano sound. My approach when I'm playing that instrument is very different than if I have a B3 organ sound going on.
Right, of course.
And which is also going to be very different if I have a Rhodes sound. And now if you add the aspect of pedals again, so if I have one of the pedals that I really like using right now, there's this crazy pedal called the Tensor, which is by Red Panda. And it's basically a sort of a tape time shifter. So what that does is that, you play whatever you want to play, and it listens to the sounds in real time, and you can kind of mess with the time of it, so you can stretch the time, or you can, pitch bend it as well, and have some sort of looping going on. And just having that as part of my arsenal definitely changes how I think of music, right? Whereas, generally, if you're just playing a chord, for example, if I add, once again, the pedal, and decide to glitch it around, I'm gonna come up with different ideas than if I didn't have the pedal. So a lot of it is just a great way for me to just in terms of creativity, just get those creative juices flowing, because now you're hearing sounds that I'm used to playing, but in a whole different view now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's coming back to the where do you get your ideas from thing. The sounds themselves, like when you're messing around, let's say on a synth or something like that, and you get some crazy sound, and it just inspires a whole song or a whole idea just from the sound itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
think it's definitely something that we can't underestimate, just the power of specific sounds and soundscapes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The sound is key. If you think of a lot of hit songs that are out there, right. You recognize the melodies, but you also recognize what kind of instrument is playing it.
Absolutely. Or just that weird synth thing that isn't even an instrument, that's some kind of weird studio produced sound,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's part of the song now. If you heard Careless Whisper on a piano,
nobody wants to hear that song.
As big, but but you recognize it because you recognize it's a sax, and it's the sound of that saxophone that's done.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's always the sound of the saxophone. But anyway, no. But it's funny just talking about that. It makes me think immediately of all these songs or beats or whatever that I've always wanted to do at Cypher, but just in general. And that I know we can't do because it's like, no, it's some weird glitchy sample thing that like could never translate. It just, I'm thinking
really?
of, I'm thinking of
challenge accepted.
I know. The name is escaping me right now, but it's a Beyonce. Fuck. What is the one where the video is all about New Orleans? Is it Formation?
I think so.
I think it's from and it's got this like glitch. I can't play it on the stream because of course our stream would get taken down right away. But it's got this little like whoop kind of sound like all the way through, and it's super recognizable. I can't even remember what it sounds like, but it is super recognizable. The minute you hear that sound, you're like, oh, it's Formation, But how could you ever like play that live in a way that's interesting, and that like. And also that is conducive to our interest, like being able to like use it as the starting point for improv.
Well, I guess we're doing that
next week. You were about to say next week. There is no next week, man.
Next time we have a Cypher event, that's what we're gonna play. I'll figure it out. Watch me, Vince.
Yeah. Well, I've actually I have been thinking like I should just throw one of those tunes and be like, guys, do you think we can actually do this? Do you think there's a way we can like use this and not be stuck in just playing the loop, but
no, for sure.
Yeah. Hopefully, Franklin, that kind of answers your questions about pedals. And the reason why I'm playing this video is like I said, J3PO is using a bunch of those or I think he's using some of those pedals.
He's a lot of the pedals the ideas I've gotten from him actually. So I have two that I'm using right now, like the tensor. That I definitely got because he uses it, and also there's this other pedal called the Meris Auto Bit, which basically what it is, it's a bit crusher pedal that I can use live. So all those kind of lo-fi video game ish kind of beeps and blops that you hear in a lot of tracks today. Well, you can do that live with this pedal, And I think that's one thing that I find cool with pedals is that you can take a lot of these production things that you can do, when you're producing beats or whatever, and I like to translate them live, So like for example, the tape stops, the tensor, or bit crushers with the auto bit. That's kind of my whole big thing is that if you can do it in the studio, I'd like to be able to do it live as well.
Yeah.
Voila.
Yeah, and I think for me, I love that because people are like, what the hell? How is that? It's cool to get that feeling, and just us hearing it, it inspires us so much more. Like
and especially in hip hop. I mean, hip hop is a genre that's it's that's what it is. It's produced music. It's all the effects that are in it. It just makes sense to
like with Urban Science and the Cypher specifically. I've always been trying to like get closer to a produced sound in the sense of like certain things that you find super common in like like normal hip hop beats or whatever, trying to integrate them. I'm just gonna close this for a second here. You know, like one of the first things I whoa, sorry, stop. One of the first things I you know, got for us was the drum pad, because I really wanted to have 808s and get away from like acoustic drums and just like the jazzy hip hop thing, you know. I mean, I love jazzy hip hop too, but like I wanted to get away from that specifically. And then I feel like that kind of started the shift in our sound. And then you know, frankly, when you brought in the pedals not very long ago, but I feel like that also made a big shift, because it was, again, sounding so much more like a sampled sound, you know, than a true sound, you know, or not true, but I mean acoustic sound, you know. So yeah,
and that's definitely what I'm going for when I think pedals and you know, trying to get as close as possible to that aesthetic as possible.
Absolutely.
And I feel like for me, pedal definitely helped me get to that step.
Yeah. There was another comment here from Marika, said, those patches are fire. So I guess you just like what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I wanted to, hold on, let me just find the right, actually there was a few things I didn't know. For example, you mentioned, so I ask everybody to send out, like, fill out this like pre-interview forms, just so I have some interesting things to talk about, but also I don't really know anybody in urban science, in the sense of like, we get together, we play, and we don't necessarily know much about each other beyond that, you know. Like I didn't go to high school with David.
My life story like every single time we play together.
Oh shit, you know, maybe I just don't listen. Maybe I just don't listen. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely what's happening.
No, but you know what I mean. Like you actually... Go ahead.
I've told it to you multiple times.
I know that, but I'm also trying to pretend that I don't know anything so that we can have something to talk about on the live stream. But what I mean is, like, I didn't go to high school with you and then go to Cégep. You know what I mean? Like, sure. You know, there's definitely people who know you much better than I do.
I know, I'm messing. Yeah.
But one thing I found very interesting is you mentioned that at home. So I'll just read off this part real quick. So, born in Montreal, grew up in Brossard. Parents are immigrants. Father from Ghana, came into Canada as a refugee from Iran. Mother from the Philippines, has an uncle here in Montreal. Came for the opportunity of living in Canada, which, for those who don't know, is already a really interesting story about where David comes from. But the thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was that you mentioned that there was music all the time at your house. Like there's music playing. So are either of your parents musicians? That's my first question.
No, they're not.
Right.
They're not. I always had the sense that my dad wanted to be a musician, but I don't think it was really well seen when he was growing up. So his dad actually, so he owned a lot of property and he had a bar, and oftentimes my dad was kind of the DJ at the time, if you want to call it that. Like he'd put on the records and entertain the guests or whatnot, and he's always enjoyed music his whole life. So you know, with my sister and I, he put us into piano classes when we were young, and for as long as I can remember, there was always music playing in the house. Like there was always a record playing, and there was always some music that was playing. You know, we'd go to bed and it was still playing. And he would just kind of bombard us with all this music all the time, you know. Nice. And it was very. There was all kinds. There was, you know, one day would be Jimmy Smith. We'd listen to some Pink Floyd. We'd listen to the Beatles. He was a big Beatles fan. Some Bach, some Beethoven. Really everything.
Well, I mean, that's it. Like that's the role of the DJs, the curator, right? Like picking out the good stuff, you know, or the parent, actually, in this case. I didn't say your dad was just the DJ or something. But it's also interesting because I didn't know that Jimmy Smith, for example, was somebody that you listened to a lot and you count as one of your influences. You got to come to the organ jam one of these years, man. You got to come to the organ jam.
I do. I can't say I probably can't hang.
Do you play walking bass at all? Like, do you do that or?
I'm not that good at it.
Okay.
I gotta. That's probably my next. That's kind of my plan for this whole quarantine period thing, is to get my left hand up to speed. Like I'm trying to kind of get there where I can, you know, solo with one hand and play some bass lines on the other hand. That's kind of my goal.
I tell you what, like at the organ jam at usually once a year, sometimes a little bit more but usually once a year, I go up and play organ. So if I can play organ, you can definitely.
I feel like
play
I've seen
organ.
those videos.
Yeah, you might have seen a video or two. I'm just like sweating and like swearing constantly because I'm trying to think of like 10 things at once. But it's fun, man. And you've played a Hammond organ before, or?
I have. Yeah, I know how it works and
Right.
whatnot. I've done a few sessions on a B3 with
Right.
the whole Leslie and stuff. And again, coming back to sounds, like that whole instrument is a whole other
It's
thing.
a whole
Like,
other thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Actually,
Definitely.
one thing I wanted to ask you sort of about that was, I guess this is kind of tying into technique or whatever. It's just like, let's say you're playing and you've got like a piano, maybe you mentioned like piano, Rhodes organ, maybe some synths. Does it bother you, like the touch, the tactile feedback that you get from the instrument, in the sense that clearly a piano feels completely different, like an actual piano feels completely different from an organ? But when you play it all on one, does that bother you? Does it not factor in? Like, what's?
It really depends. I'm definitely one. I feel like it's one of my weak points, in a sense that if I let's say I set out a keyboard, for example, and the touch isn't how I like, it definitely messes me up a bit,
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of, like, if, for example, if I'm playing a piano, yeah, for sure, like the way a piano feels is going to be different than the way a Rhodes feels and the way that a B3 feels.
Mm-hmm.
But those instruments, in themselves, they're supposed to feel those ways. So, it kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm playing, let's say, a keyboard, like with heavy weighted keys, and I put a B3 on it, yeah, it's going to feel really weird.
Right.
Or even here's a good example. When I play your Nerd Electro, at the Cypher, if I play I refuse to play piano sounds on that,
mm-hmm.
just because the keys aren't weighted.
Yeah, and
it's for me, anyways. It's really hard for me to kind of get that piano feel and sound.
I completely understand
with that keyboard.
Yeah. It's
with B3s and Rhodes, it works.
Yeah,
but it's hard. With piano sounds, and even here in my little setup here, I have my Prophet hooked up to my laptop right now,
mm-hmm.
and if I'm to record some piano sounds,
right.
it's gonna kind of bug me out, just because of the way that these non-weighted keys are. The piano is just gonna feel weird, and I'm not gonna play the same way I would if I had something with more weighted.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes, if I'm playing my Nord to a piano sound, and if I'm actually playing to an actual grand piano,
mm-hmm.
Because then you add the actual wood and the actual resonance of the instrument and all of that,
sure.
Which once again dictates how you feel about the instrument. I mean, same way, like if you're a brass player, just having the feel of the instrument when you play it.
Yeah.
It's a totally different thing. Like if you were to play like an iwi or something versus a sax, those are two different instruments.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I like sat in on keys at a jam, and it was like I can't remember. I think it was like a Yamaha. Like one of those Yamaha P somethings, one of those things. And it's just like there was this like a Roland Cube amp or something like that. Just the fact that the sound was coming out of like this direction, you know what I mean? Like you're playing here, but the sound's coming out this way was such a mind fuck for me, because it's like, I was up to that used to playing a piano, and you play it and it comes out of here, you know what I mean, like where the sound comes from. So anyway, it's a really weird. I mean, is there anything that you do to adjust to that, or it's just kind of like that's part of the
well, I feel like that, I mean, that whole thing, I've gotten used to it. I mean, over the years, just playing out of a keyboard and a monitor for so long. But when I was at McGill, I definitely spent a lot more time playing a grand piano. Mm-hmm. And actually one of my teachers there, he was a big fan of just kind of embracing that, even in a live setting where you can't really hear the piano, like figuring out a way to hear the piano without the amplification and without having to hear it through a monitor, because that also, that kind of changes the way you perceive the sounds and the tones that you're getting out of the instrument,
Yeah. I feel that's particularly difficult with piano, because like, if you're a jazz piano player or whatever, right? Like that means that 99% of the time when you do gigs, you're not performing on your own instrument, right? Like you're not bringing your own piano, So to say that that a goal is to like develop a really close relationship with the instrument in a matter of a sound check time, to be able to like know what it sounds like every note without even hearing it, like that's crazy. Anyway, I mean, it's a great exercise, but it's super hard.
It's something I've always had a hard time doing, actually, to be honest.
Sure, I'm sure.
I've had a hard time with that.
Well,
Yeah,
you
just
do
kind of
have your
switching
monitor at an
between-
extremely loud volume. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But even like just like practicing at home, for example, like when I was doing Boogie Wonderband, like just
Yeah.
practicing. If I'm practicing stuff at home with my monitors here,
Mhm.
my home monitors.
Yeah.
Practicing it sitting down and whatnot is going to be totally different than when I'm at sound check with in-ears and everything compressed and it sounding a certain way. I'm going to play it differently than and it's the same music.
Right.
But just that change of scenery for me, I've always had a hard time kind of switching between both.
Yeah, I understand that. So I'm thinking we've been talking for like 2 hours now, and I'm sure Yeah.
gosh.
So I figure
Is anyone even still here?
there may be, but I see a few people. I'm gonna maybe let's just go through the last questions that people asked in advance, and then I have like maybe 1 or 2 questions that I could ask, and we can wrap it up at that point. We're kind of done here. So
I'll try to not digress then.
Sure. Well, whatever. We like, hey, if you want to talk for another 2 hours, I don't care. So actually, let me go through all the questions, and maybe we can like kind of jump in a little bit through them. So Clarel had asked a second question was, how are you adjusting professionally to the new pandemic reality? That's one of them. And then Paolo Max Ricardo asked, what's something that you wish that you've done earlier in your career? LTs asks top 3 jazz pianists. I think we got over a few of those. And I forget his real name, but McTokes asks, do you have any particular exercises you do for working your time/rhythm? So that's kind of like all over the place.
Okay. One at a time then.
Well, pandemic reality, adjusting.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of a curse and a blessing. I mean, a curse obviously because just like everyone else, it kind of sucks to get your income sucked and your revenue stream and just
are you
all the
able to
excitement.
make money right now or no?
Here and there. I mean, I don't have anything really set up. I'm not teaching that much of late, so I'm pretty much living off of the government aid, more or less. But I have some savings and whatnot, so that hasn't really been too much of a concern. But at the same time, like I've been whining to myself for years that I never have time to practice. I never have time to really get into what I've been trying to improve myself and whatnot. So I've really seen this pandemic as kind of the opportunity to just buckle down and get through all of the things that I've not had the time to do in years. There's so many things I've wanted to transcribe and practice forever. I'm finally getting good at mixing and producing a bit more. I've been doing it for a while, but now I'm finally actually able to just sit down and master it as best as possible. So I've for the most part tried as much as possible to just take this opportunity to do all of that. And life is going to start up at some point. I'm confident in that, but I might as well make use of the time off, if you want to call it that, in a sense, and to make it work for my advantage, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good answer, and it's similar to my answer. I'm me, I always have like 50 things on my to-do list. Although I've had like I have some important things that need to get done that I'm finally getting the chance to get done. So anyway, whatever. That's a whole other thing. So the question from Paulo Max Ricardo: what's something that you wish that you've done earlier in your career?
That's a good question, because I mean, I spent a lot of time telling myself, oh, what if I actually practiced more when I was younger, or took the time to transcribe more things, or do this and that. But at the same time, I think it's easy to get hung up on those questions, but the reality is, like, a lot of the things that I've done in the past have led me to where I am now. Whether it's where I want to be, or if I want to be more, so it's kind of half and half, because at the same time, like, if I had spent more time maybe just buckling down and spending all of my days in the practice room, maybe I wouldn't have been able to have the chance to tour around the world, or to gig with certain people, because a lot of being a musician is just the connections and meeting people and getting out there and learning from different people and different experiences. So
I guess what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of what you're saying is like, oh, on one hand, I wish I did this, but then that would have also removed other things. Like there's only so much.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's just life in general. Like, we wish we would have done things differently, and sure, it would have changed something, but there are probably other things that we would have wished we had done if, you can't have it all, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's
how I kind of see it.
It's a very mature point of view.
I
think
what is possible.
Okay. So the next question was from LT's top 3 jazz pianists.
Okay. Define jazz.
Sure. Yeah. That's yeah.
But if I were to off the top of my head, just my favorites, there's definitely Herbie Hancock. I would also say Oscar Peterson.
Oh.
And Keith Jarrett would probably be my top 3.
So while we just said that, let's just real quick, we can have you react to this. I don't know if you've ever seen this before.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry. I just had to. I had to pull that one.
I actually transcribed that solo in Sage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a small Keith Jarrett phase when I was in college in Sage.
Did you ever study with Stephen Miro? Hello? Can you hear me, David?
Sorry, you're kind of breaking up on my end.
Can you hear me now? 1, 2.
I think you're asking. Could you repeat that again?
I just asked whether you'd ever studied with Stephen Miro.
Oh no.
Okay.
I've never studied with Steve Miro.
I guess he was probably out of town right when you were at McGill.
When I was at Vanier, I believe I was studying under Ed Hart. What's his name?
Eric Harding. Okay, nice.
That was my
yeah. Nice. Because Steve is a huge Keith Jarrett fan. Just was wondering if whatever, if you'd studied with him. Sorry. So you said your top 3 were Herbie Hancock. Oh, Oscar Peterson and Keith Jarrett. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Which was, you can hear me okay? Yeah, I think so. Do you have any particular exercises you do for working your time/rhythm? From McTokes. Oh. Are we frozen again? Oh, no. David, can you hear me? 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, no. Uh-oh. Well, this might be the end of the live stream. Oh, I think I see David again. David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of losing you. Yeah.
Okay, so this is clearly going to be the end of the live stream very soon. So the question was from McTokes, do you have any particular exercises you do for working your time/rhythm?
That's a good question. I feel like just the fact that I've I kind of learned drums, and I was practicing a lot of drums back in the day, definitely helped me out, and even today, just being around drummers a lot has helped that. Because honestly, I don't really practice much in terms of time and rhythm nowadays. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is back when I was a drummer, more or less, just kind of getting into that and practicing stuff at a metro.
Uh-oh. We might have lost.
Play with people more often. That definitely helps a lot. And the second thing is play with a metronome if you're learning different passages and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I can't honestly say that I work on my time a lot these days.
But I mean, you did spend a lot of time playing drums and working with the metronome, and that's clearly part of where you developed your time.
Exactly. So back when I was doing drums, I'd spend a lot of time, with a metronome and just kind of doing what any young 14-year-old drummer does, put headphones on and play the music. That you can't go wrong with that. Play it to your favorite records and CDs and albums
Sure.
and whatnot, and your favorite bands, and they all played to clicks and they all played with each other, and wrong with that.
Did you ever
So a mix of that and playing with different bands, I feel like that's kind of the best way to go.
Did you ever consciously adapt rhythmic material from the drums to the keys, taking rudiments and then playing, I don't know, chords or something with rudiment rhythms or something? Oh, I may have lost David again.
So you're kind of slowing down.
Yeah, I just lost you for a second there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I was just asking whether you ever consciously took materials from the drums, so it could be rudiments or whatever, and then applied it to the piano and be like, okay, I'm going to do this, but in my left and right hand playing a chord or something.
I've never actively done it, but I know it's a thing that's done. Actually, I was speaking to Theo.
Okay.
This, and I know he does that, where he takes paradiddles,
right,
and he kind of figures that as a comping rhythm.
Yeah.
What I have done in the past is maybe I've taken a couple of just interdependent things and use those as comping ideas for sure, or just different claves and use those as patterns I can use.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But I've never actually actively looked at translating different drum rudiments into piano rudiments. I more see as understanding how a drummer thinks with just the general idea of time more than specific concepts of drumming and whatnot, if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand completely. I think it kind of ties into what you were saying before about sort of feeling it in the sense of and theory and whatever. It's just you practice these things so you're not thinking about them consciously. And the fact that you were playing drums and learning all this stuff, it just kind of it was always there in the back of your head. So playing keys, you're automatically going to play in a way that is that has some rhythmic information in it that came from the drums. Uh-oh, you might be gone again. Oh no, man!
Exactly.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. We're back, man. Okay, so this is really glitching out. David, are you there? Okay, this is really glitching out. I think we'll end it here. So the last comment I think was from Marika, who said, "Thank you, you're the best. One of the most positive, creative, generous people I've met in Montreal." So thank you, man. Marika. Holy crap!
That is so kind. Thank you very much.
So,
wow.
I would like you to react to one last thing and give us the story behind it.
Sure.
I just hope that our internet connection won't have an issue here. But, okay. So, as a last thing, I would love for you to react to and explain this. You must have known this was going to be in there. You must have known.
I totally forgot.
How can you forget, man? This is where it's at.
Oh, man.
This is where it's at, man.
Do you have to do that? Oh, man. I think this is when I wanted to start my rap career or something.
I'm pretty sure this is where your rap career started and ended.
No, it lingered on for a couple of years after that. It definitely lingered on for a while, but that style didn't.
So,
oh my god!
So
I totally forgot about that picture.
What's the story?
I feel like that shows up on my feed once every year or something. Maybe
we're bringing it back, baby.
Once in a while. But then I'd be depriving people from all this laughter and joy. So
I don't believe in deleting old stuff. I believe everything is
me
public,
neither.
It's
an archive now.
How old were you when this was taken?
I think it was 13 or 14.
You were 35? What? 35?
No, 13.
Yeah. So if you do I didn't pull this one out, but if you do a deep dive, you can find a video, the Stamina Cipher.
Oh, I'm screwed. Why did I agree to do this? People are just gonna deep dive.
No,
this
but
crap.
whatever. I'm just kidding around. But David, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. I'm glad we got a chance to talk. Also, because this is what's the word I'm looking for? This is definitely the longest we've ever spoken. Never mind, like spoken on a live stream.
Definitely.
But you know what I mean? I mean, it is.
Vince, we should do this more often. When do you want me to call you?
Hey,
next?
man, like absolutely, I'm down. You know, it's funny how
man.
these things. You know, anyway, it's funny how these things are. You know, I was explaining to somebody the other day. It's like, man, it's you know, it's sad that like we kind of lose friends as musicians when we stop playing with them. Like we no longer play with somebody, man, and we just like, it's not that they're not our friend. It's just we don't hang out because that was our opportunity.
That is so true. Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you. Let me just see if there was. There was some other, but you know, there's always more stuff. We'll save this for the next live stream. This has been epic.
How can I be that interesting?
Oh no, I'm talking about the questions that I had. But I had.
Oh, you okay? That makes more sense.
Yeah, well, you know, I was curious about like. So he's also a geography and world history nerd and stuff like that. I was interested in.
That's good. Boring. No one wants to hear about that.
I'm curious about that stuff. But anyway, David, pleasure. Absolute pleasure having you.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really should have thought about something to play at the end of the thing. I didn't set that up. Anyway, whatever. But I should mention. Oh, I'm really late on mentioning this, but Freddie V is also doing a live stream, like right now on Instagram. So go check it out. I hope it's still on right now. There we go. He's interviewing his brother Jean-Francis Var, who's also a musician. Is this one of your beats?
Yeah.
Nice.
I just figured, you know, since we're...
Wait, who's playing? Are you playing guitar?
Yeah.
What? That is actually amazing, dude. That's fucking cool.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me, Vince. This has been fun.
Yeah, likewise.
Hopefully I'm not full of crap and that some of the stuff that I said makes sense to people.
I think it makes sense. I mean, people were asking questions and stuff, so you know, it's all good. So yeah, as usual, I'll say that if anybody has any comments, criticism, you know, improvements for next time, please let us know. Also, I'll mention that we have the Pass the Beat challenge. Go check it out on Instagram, YouTube, etc. for remixing. It's one of our offline, challenges. I've also been updating the YouTube archive, so if you want to see lots of old ciphers, we have now. I just checked. We have 84 ciphers that are up on YouTube, 4-hour-long videos for those who want to see it.
And they're great to jam to too if you want. I've been doing that.
Look at that.
Every Thursday night. When I get lonely, I'm like, cipher. So I just put on a video and I get my keyboard. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I'm playing with the band.
Oh,
wait,
nice.
I'm in the band. I'm playing with. Yeah.
That's cool. I never really thought about doing that, but that's that makes sense. That's pretty much it. Thank you, David. Thank you, David, so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure.
It's been fun.
And I guess we'll see all y'all later. And have a good night, everybody.
See y'all.
Bye.